Hello, everyone, and welcome to Deserto's The Jungle. We're back after the MSI break. A new meta is underway here for the summer split. And as usual, we'll be here to break it all down. It is Monty, Dom, and dGon here. Y'all, I'm in Singapore. I've been covering Wild Rift Worlds. It's called Icons. It's been a lot of fun. But we'll turn our focus to LoL PC and all the changes that have been happening. Dom, how are you, man? And what has jumped out at you so far?
Oh, I've been good. I've been doing like 35 hours of co-streaming in the last 3 days or so.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, I've been watching a ton of League, and let me tell you, what's jumped out to me is that every region has taken the durability changes and let it convince them outside of LPL that nothing is possible. You know, it's everyone has 70
turned
health.
everyone into cowards.
No one will dive, no one will gank. Like, it is just the most boring, like, AFK meta of all time, which I wonder how Riot's going to respond to this, because obviously one of the main criticisms of the game for a long period of time was that everyone just died too fast. There's too much burst damage, and essentially they wanted burst champions to do burst damage, but like bruisers should not be one-shotting you. That was like the whole idea behind this. But now in competitive play, it's like no one is killing anything, and it's not actually the game's fault. It's just like psychologically, I feel like the players are like, oh, durability, that sounds like it's like fucking people are tanky. And then they look at the turret changes. It's like, ooh, turrets are harder to dive, and I don't want to look like an idiot dying to a turret, so I'm probably not going to do that. And I feel like this must be kind of a catastrophe for the League of Legends esports side of things, because you're having games in LCK that go 34 minutes and 30 seconds without a kill. Like, you are having some of the most boring fucking games of all time in other regions.
They are very boring.
What is the response?
I can confirm from watching the LCK games. Also, I mean, you didn't mention this either, but they're also on different patches. So what's been interesting is that LCK and LPL are on 12.10, and LCS and LEC are on 12.11, and those are 12.11 is the patch that actually reduced a small amount of the turret damage. So in theory, it would be not a lot easier, but slightly easier to make these dives on those patches. And we still haven't seen very accelerated play in LCS or LEC either. So
no, it definitely feels like the fear that Dom was talking about is prevalent everywhere, because there are a couple of champions that everyone plays, like an Ezreal, like an Azir, across all the different regions that have just been prioritized, where you can dish out damage from safety. You can disengage when you want. The Wukong and Viego as well have been showing up everywhere. And then Zeri, when available. Zeri's been banned a ton. But again, a lot of mobility to disengage from a fight when it doesn't feel like it's going their way, or to skirt around the edges here, Dom. Why do you feel like we take so long to adjust to these meta changes when it comes to durability, after everything that the purpose of this patch?
I mean, I think the main problem is that in regions outside of LPL, pretty much every other region, there isn't that much complexity in the plays that are being set up. So normally it's kind of like they'll get a good trade, and then based off that trade, that'll be the catalyst for the action that's to come. So, oh, we got a good trade bot, can we move mid? And then like people will start reacting based off that. Where a lot of like LPL plays were based off like setups, and like, okay, we're gonna have push mid, we're gonna start stacking waves, and we're gonna dive on this wave with like 3 or 4 people. I mean, if you want to look at a prime example of this, you can look at OMG versus JDG game 2, and JDG they're playing against the Kale, which is something that's getting picked around the world now because of the fact that if everything's more durable, that means you can scale easier, and Kale's one of the best scaling champions in the game. So the response to this was playing Gwen, stacking waves, and then having the jungler and the mid lane with Prio just dive 3v2 with the jungler under turret. And this is versus the super powered, insanely strong turrets. And the funniest thing about it is that everyone's mentality is, oh, well, turrets are harder to dive, so we should do less of that. And then LPL's mentality is, oh, well, turrets are stronger, so we have to execute the dives better then. Like, that is the difference between the regions and the psychopaths that are my favorite LPL players. So
there's also, I think there's also the argument to be made that if you have a pre-planned dive, so a lot of what usually happens is that there, with a pre-planned dive, there's often a cross map play, and if towers are stronger and it's harder to execute the cross-map reaction if you don't have the setup there, because the setup itself becomes more important to the successful execution of a dive, right? And doing a reactive setup is much more challenging. So in a way, if you're good at diving towers and you have that plan, the tower buffs can actually help you if you're capable of executing it without dying.
Well, I mean, in LPL, what we're seeing is literally like somebody's getting dove top, and then the cross map play happens, the enemy team gets dove bot. But it's like the champions that they're willing to put themselves in those diving situations with is pretty much every champion in the game. Like the way that they kind of view it is, if you have one man advantage, then you can dive. So if you have a 3-on-2, you can dive. So let's say there's a gank top, there's a 2-on-1 top. Okay, free gank bot. We're seeing like Lulu Viego diving Lucian Nami lanes from full HP. Like they just play for the execution. It's like, okay, we're going to polymorph him, can't flash while he's polymorphed, and then we'll hit the Viego stun, one shot him, get out of the turret. You know, like it's still not that much different. Sure, you can't take like a bunch of extra turret shots, but you can still tank 2 turret shots, right? 2 turret shots and then re-aggro, and then somebody else can tank 1. So as long as you're able to juggle the aggro and kill somebody within the first like 3 turret shots, you should be able to dive. And I just feel like people are scared to do it. It literally just looks like pure fear.
I wonder if I wonder if it's like when other regions were able to dive a little bit easier in this last patch, they didn't learn it properly. They learned less about the tower and more about the burst damage. But right there, something simple that you just did, Dom, was like count the tower shots. It's 3. You want to kill them within 3. If you can kill them within 3, that's the way. If not, then there's a likelihood that the damage that they'll be able to put back will get 1 kill back for them or something like that. But maybe the other regions didn't learn it well enough, Monty.
I mean, other regions didn't dive in the first place that much. You know, like LPL was
true.
always more willing to dive. And I think last split, there was a bit of a tough time for LPL. I think that was probably the worst LPL split in like the last 6 splits that I remember, because they weren't sure of how to like execute dives when they can't TP to the dive, but then the enemy could TP to match the dive. So now a lot of the time what you're seeing is that when the dives occur, they try to do it in ways where they force the enemy to not be able to bring TP. So they'll have like these Lissandra versus Ahri matchups where the Lissandra will force the enemy Ahri to take cleanse. And then if he has cleanse, oh shit, he can't TP to the side lane. So the Lissandra push then becomes that more valuable in the matchup, because now you can use the push to actually force a 3v2 situation on another portion of the map. So yeah, I think that the TP changes were actually a nerf to LPL at the beginning of the year, but then as things have gone on, they've become smarter and smarter on how to play around these TP situations, and now people are just not taking TP as much because there's so many instances where you're going to need something like cleanse because of the champions that are being played in the mid lane right now.
Fans at home, the question now to you: why do you think these meta changes are making other regions play much slower, unlike what the LPL is? Go ahead, let us know in the comments below. After you subscribe, of course, because we finally did it. We passed Astralis. We are no longer the crappest show based off of subscription numbers in all of League of Legends. We passed the the LEC squad that is always going to have some struggles here. So thank you.
Astralis is doing better now. They made a lot of upgrades. You know, we're still in a battle. Now that they're better, they might actually surpass us again. We can't have that.
That's right. So make sure you subscribe to the DWG LoL channel for all your League of Legends needs, and let us know why the meta changes is slowing down other regions, but not the LPL. Another meta question that I kind of wanted to ask is, because of the prevalence of the durability patch, we've seen some unique and new champions start to pop on up in different areas. So, Monty, I wanted to ask you, what has been a couple of the champions, or one of the champions that has surprised you the most, or is cool to see back in the meta that we haven't seen in a little while?
I mean, those are 2 kind of different things, right?
Those are 2 different things.
I guess what surprised me was the Twitch Yuumi lane. The Yuumi wasn't terribly surprising, because in any meta where you can get away with using Yuumi and scale, I think pro teams are going to pick it just because it is so incredibly powerful in the late game in terms of the mobility and healing it offers. But The Twitch was, I would say, that was actually one of the more fun surprises because we haven't seen a lot of Twitch in recent metas, and he is a fun champion to watch that you can do things and be very active on the map with if you're a good player and you're playing around the rest of your team effectively. So that's been a little bit fun for me, I would say.
Twitch Yumi played by, I think it was Johnson and Aframu in the LCS. That was the one that I remember seeing it.
Yeah, it's been played a lot in the West overall.
Dom, how about you?
Well, I mean, we've seen a couple different things pop up. Yeah. So let's say, in LPL, there's been a lot of Kayle, right? And one of the responses we saw to
I didn't realize it was the most played top laner in LPL until I looked it up just now. Literally the most played.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a couple reasons for that. So because people are blinding more like Orin and Sejuani, now Kayle becomes more useful as a counter pick. And then also the really good Kayle players, or the people that are super comfortable on Kayle, are willing to just blind pick it. And people have different responses to what a blind pick Kayle, like what you're supposed to do to blind pick Kayle. Like, do you want to match it with range? Do you want to play something that can really bully it early? One of the things that we saw in the dive that I was talking about was when you take a Gwen into the Kayle, you just literally deny him from experience, stack 4 waves, and then dive the Kayle. But then the other option we saw, and one of the most, this is going to lead into the most interesting champion that I've seen, was Nasus coming back as a counter to Kayle, which just looked absolutely brutal for the Kayle. You put the attack speed slow on the champion, that's all that champion is. And this Nasus that we saw was from Cube. He ended up with, I think like 360 stacks at 16 minutes. By like 28 minutes, he had 800 stacks. It was brutal. It just looked like such a hard counter. It actually looked unplayable. So I like seeing a lot of these new champions in the meta. I mean, I wasn't really surprised by Taliyah and Swain because they both got really big buffs, but I think that those champions just make the game more interesting. It's so much better to see Taliyah be available instead of having to see Orianna versus Zir versus Corki only. And yeah, that's why I was surprised that we weren't seeing much Taliyah at all in the West. Obviously, they are on different patches, so we'll have to see if LPL keeps playing it on 12-11. But I assume that they will, based on just the things that the champion does well. Like mobility is always something that they prioritize really heavily in the LPL. I mean, you don't really know from scrims where the Galio started at MSI, but I assume that Xiaohu being unbeaten on it in LPL and then playing it in games and looking so good on it helped create that dynamic where people felt like they had to pick it up themselves or at least find counters to it. And I feel like that heavily shaped the MSI meta. So these champions that can move out of the lane, Lissandra, Galio, like TF, Taliyah, like, and then Swain for early fights. All those types of champions, I think, makes the game so much more fun.
I was looking.
I mean, it's certainly true when we compare it to a lot of the kind of scaling control mages and the Victor, Corki, Azir meta that seems to be dominating a lot of the West and Korea right now. At least I think it's probably most accurate to compare this to LCK because at least they're on the same patch and there were a lot of changes in 12-11, but LCK has been pretty locked into like Ahri, Azir, Corki, Victor overall. And Taliyah has been one of the second most banned champions within the league, but we really have I think there's only one game that we saw Taliyah mid, and otherwise it was a jungle pick for Dread, which worked very well until Nongshim basically threw that game versus T1. So, but that wasn't the problem. I mean, he did really well with it in the early game.
Was the Nasus game, was that the only game that you saw the counter to Kayle? I just find that fascinating because that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, there was only one pick. It was the first time that it had been picked in like 9.5 years in LPL. There had not been a Nasus picked in that amount of time. They just pulled it out. It looked fucking amazing. I was like, Jesus, okay, all right, Cube, like, I guess you got the Nasus pocket pick. But I mean, he has a lot of those like interesting picks. Cube is not a super mechanical top laner like most of the LPL top laners. Like when you think of other LPL top laners, they're always good on like Camille, Fiora. Like those are the picks they want to play. Jax. Those are all these LPL champions. And Cube he's like able to kind of play them, but you never really want to see it on him. It's like when Impact plays a carry top laner and you're like, I mean, you're not terrible at it, but like you're not exception. You're not Impact on it, right? Like when Impact plays Gwen and you're an EG fan, a little part of you dies every single time. You're like, fuck, god damn it, we're gonna lose this game. Like, all right, well, we're not gonna win through the gun. Hopefully, Danny pops off. But yeah, so he's that type of player. So he pulled out the Mordekaiser. So he's got the Impact champion pool going. He pulled out the Mordekaiser as a counter to the blind Sejuanis that have been going around. And had a really good game on that. That was the one game that they won versus Ultraprime today. So, yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of interesting champions. I guess while you said that, I was thinking real quick about what was the most surprising. And outside of the Nasus, one of the most surprising that's been picked actually a few times has been Vi, because I think this champion is like terrible. I don't know where this champion came from, and then now people are just picking Vi all of a sudden, like in multiple regions. Like we saw it in LCK, we've seen it in LPL a few times. I just feel like this champion sucks. I was really surprised to see it because that champion does not feel good to play.
It's only been a few games in LCK, so it's not like it has been incredibly high priority, but I haven't been impressed with it either in terms of its success, but a lot of the time if the AD jungle pool gets pinched because there's so much of a priority on Wukong and Viego right now, and I think if you're really desperate for an AD jungler, teams might default to it if they kind of fuck up their draft a little bit. But yeah, I think it's sometimes I feel like it's been a little bit of a desperation pick in LCK rather than something that was incredibly intentional.
Yeah, I mean the idea of it is like when you play with stuff that can cover a lot of distance, like a Ari or Lissandra, or even Talia, you have that Vi plus mage one-shot combo, and it's really good at locking down even mobile champions like, for example, LeBlanc. So if you're playing against LeBlanc or Ari, or you're playing with LeBlanc or Ari, and you're playing with these high mobility champions in the mid lane, that's normally when you see the Vi come out. But it just seems so one-dimensional. It feels like you know what a Vi is going to do in the game, and I just feel like it shouldn't be working.
But it keeps getting picked. Fans at home, this is your reminder. Subscribe to the Deserto channel and let us know what is the most surprising pick you've seen so far across the League of Legends meta, and what region. Yeah, I think that's a good one there. I do want just a couple more things about the meta, just because I missed it a little bit. Why is Sejuani top like the thing? Sejuani top the thing, and then Dom, I want you to kind of give your spiel on what junglers we should pick into Wukong, because I know you're popping off about it earlier. But why, Monty? Thoughts on the Sejuani? Like, why is that there? Like, why can't it be anything else tanky? Why can't we just default back to Ornn?
So a couple things about this that I think are interesting. I was talking to Alorum about this because he is like a Sejuani top connoisseur. So he brought up some interesting points when I asked him about this, and he thinks that, first off, he thinks it's actually worse than it was last year when he was trying to evangelize about Sejuani top, which I also thought was kind of hilarious. But he brought up some good points about synergy with existing junglers. Sejuani passive is strong with Wukong and Viego, because you can quickly, not passive, the stun, because you can quickly stack up that ability with attack speed steroids or auto resets, that Wukong and Viego are capable of, like, basically stunning a lot of people very quickly using that. It is possible to run Ignite in the lane as well, as long as you just don't use your Q to trade, because it has such a long cooldown, right? So you can have, especially with some of these junglers that can set up the stun very quickly, some pretty strong kill pressure, and especially since you are going to be pushed in early in a lot of matchups as well. It also, I think, it gives tankiness, but Ornn is still, I think Ornn is still stronger, but we have seen to a certain degree Ornn bans as well. But it's just a reliable engage tool. You have the ability to kind of throw out your ultimate and not commit to a lot of these fights, which means that you have more options in the way that you play out many of these team fights. So I think these are a lot of the reasons why people are preferring it right now.
Yeah, I'll go for the easy answer, which is simply buffed in 12.8. Like they just straight up buffed the frost armor passive,
Right.
and then the biggest part about it, and the reason why people are really picking it, is because you have percentage max health scaling within the kit. So now everyone has more percentage max health. So people are just picking champions that get benefit from having more health. So that's the easy answer for why people are picking Sejuani. And then I think that a lot of the times you're just using people are the best case for it is when you're picking it as an answer to the Ornn, where you're both just like handshaking tank matchups, and yeah, no one's gonna really have a massive advantage there.
Gotcha. That and Swain, I think, was another one that we started seeing a little bit more. So I can't wait to see what other, I guess, new old champs keep coming back in the meta, and answers that we keep getting. Like like I'm still stuck on the Nasus by Cube. That's so cool. That just makes a lot of sense.
For what it's worth, I think Sejuani's probably going to be on her way out because she's been a lot less effective than people I think would like to believe that she is. Like in the actual practice of professional matches, it hasn't been amazing by any means.
Yeah. Well, shout out to Kieran. That's Alorum. He and I are friends. I got to call him by the first name. Fellow member of the Esports soccer group. He played with us last week before I left. All right. One more. The Wukong, Dom. People kept handshaking AD champs into it. You were evangelizing for anything else. What are the answers here? Why does that piss you off so much?
I mean, so Wukong is a strong pick, but I mean, it has distinct weaknesses, which I don't feel like people are exploiting. They're just handshaking Viego, and I feel like generally Viego is just, it's not going to be an answer really to the Wukong. It's just that you can play that, and then the other guy can play Wukong, and neither of you are going to really like get too far ahead of each other based off just jungle matchup. But the picks that I really like into Wukong, the two that I've been talking about are Karthus and Lilia. I think Karthus is actually a pretty difficult champion to play. Like you have to be really comfortable hitting your Qs, and a lot of people don't want to take the risk of actually having a 1v1 that's skill dependent as opposed to just playing Viego and Wukong and just running your fucking face all over your keyboard, and whoever fucking hits their keyboard first with their head wins. Like instead of that situation, you actually have to hit Karthus Qs. You have to use your wall well. To set up one Q, you have to smite, hit another Q. You actually need to be able to protect yourself as a Karthus by queuing on top of yourself. And yeah, I just think that the Karthus has a good matchup into it. Karthus and Lilia, for the same reasons, they both are way faster clears than Wukong. Karthus is actually faster than Lilia, but Lilia can scrap a little bit more aggressively into Wukong. If you pair something like a Karthus or a Lilia with a prio mid, you should just be able to like play for their Raptors on repeat. Push in mid, group your mid with your jungle, walk into their jungle. There's nothing that a Wukong can do pre-6. After 6, you actually have to be like smart about it. You got to make sure that you're not getting engaged on in one shot. But you should have a lead in this matchup. That's like the core part about when you're playing a Karthus or a Lilia into Wukong. You should actually be able to develop a lead from the fact that you clear so much faster. So Wukong has, like I said, two main weaknesses. The two main weaknesses, clear speed, just it pretty much is a 5 camp jungler max before Crab, where all these other junglers are 6. That's number one. Also, with Karthus, you can actually invade a Wukong level 1. You have that advantage as well. And then the other advantage of playing magic damage dealing champions and why they're good into Wukong is because Wukong's passive gives him armor, but it doesn't give him MR. So he's a lot squishier when you actually have to deal with magic damage dealing champions. And Karthus just does so much fucking damage that it essentially forces the Wukong to go a Hex Drinker, and you can just really outpace that champion in the jungle. So I want to see those as answers. I mean, I still think Wukong can be OP. I think it is really strong at the right times, but I don't think that it's unbeatable, which is kind of how it's looked in a lot of these regions. Like no one is actually being able to deal with the champion, and I feel like it's because they permanently answer it with the same matchups. They play Lee Sin into it, or they play Volibear into it, or they play Viego into it, and none of them are actually going to beat it. It's like they're just trying to not lose the game.
Yeah, it is worth noting that at least on 12.10, that was before the Wukong nerfs, which also not a lot, but did slightly hurt the jungle speed of Wukong, which made it even slower in many ways. So I mean, I guess I understand the priority in LPL and LCK just a little bit more because that was before some of these changes, but you have a lot of valid
Yeah,
points.
the Wukong changes are fake news. They don't actually do anything to his clear speed, because like really in the jungle, sure, like technically he clears slightly slower, but what really matters is like how many camps can you do before the crab spawns or 315, or like how fast does it take you to hit level 3, and how many of your abilities do you need to cast, how many of your AoE abilities, your E in this case, do you need to cast in order to kill like the wolves and the raptors. And essentially it's all the same. So it's kind of just like a fake nerf where they just want to pretend like they're hitting Wukong, but what they did doesn't actually change the way that people are going to play him. They're going to put 2 points in E, 2 points in Q. You use 2 E's on the Raptors. You don't need, or sorry, 2 E's on the Wolves. You don't need to hit the Wolves in extra time or anything. So your clear speed is effectively the same. And yeah, I mean, they didn't actually like hurt his attack speed. They just hurt his, like the monster damage, the increased monster damage from the E ability. So I don't think that it will do anything to really push Wukong out of the meta. Like on 12-11, I'm not expecting any less Wukong play from the East.
I like that point. I don't know how I prepped this like fact. I was just kind of looking earlier. Blabber has one of the highest XP differences at 10, and he's the one that's played into the Wukong 2 out of the 3 games. It looks like Cloud9 is not playing the Wukong or not prioritizing the Wukong on both sides. And he's
they already have 2 people playing like monkeys in the bot lane, so they don't want to overload on their team comp. You know?
All right,
you can't completely chimp out as a team, you know.
Yeah.
Oh wow,
it's too easy to counter. Then they just run 3 Karthuses into your 3 Wukongs, and how do you win?
All right, and with that, let's hop on into the LCS. I love that. That was a good one. Sorry, Destiny. All right, we'll start there. The standings. Cloud9 on the bottom. First time in 3 years. CLG on the top. A caveat, strength of schedule, probably a lot to do.
Jesus
everything
Christ,
to do with that.
CLG got a free pass, dude.
I think that was the easiest schedule they could get. Surprising, well, and good for them. They did win those games.
I mean, like, is it that easy? Because, like, to be honest, like, CLG should be a complete fucking bottom feeder, right? So, like, I feel like it shouldn't even be possible for them to have an easy schedule, because they shouldn't be better than 3 teams. So, like, any teams they play against, it should be a fucking hard schedule. So for me, I was like, if they just win 3 games of the Super Week, damn, they look a lot better. Like they look like they might not be bottom 3.
Well, I think the meta, obviously, when you were relying on Luger very heavily last split, and we're now in a scaling AD carry, and I mean, we could talk about this. You would argue that the game has not changed very fundamentally in terms of diving or proactivity as a result of these changes, but in the perception,
it has in the LCS.
In LCS and LEC and LCK, the perception is that it has among pro players, and you can tell that by their play. I was talking with Wolf, and he said that over the first week of LCK competition, that the average game time has gone up by 4 whole minutes, which is like an absolutely insane change for average game time in a league. So the perception is definitely there within LCK, which you can also tell by just watching the games, by the eye test. But regardless, under the perception of these things, and under the fact that there is a lot of handshaking going on in bot lane matchups around scaling AD carries, you would expect that this would be a good meta for a player like Luger to potentially carry this team. Nice. So I think that they have, whether it's real or not, the only thing that matters is that this is the way teams are playing, and the way teams are playing is beneficial to CLG and the players that they have on this roster.
It's got up 25 seconds in LPL.
That's actually a very interesting stat, that it went up 4 minutes in Korea and 25 seconds. So literally 1/8 as much increased game time.
Plus the amount of games that have been played in the LPL, so the variance is kind of gone now. Like that is definitely what it is. Whereas a lot of the other regions, LCK has played more games, but definitely
they played 10 best of 3s at this point, so it's not a small amount of games, right?
Right.
I think the interesting thing about that, though, what you were saying about Luger, is that they're not really even playing like a scaling AD meta. Like they're playing the Sivir. He played the Seraphine, which I thought was interesting. And then the other game he was playing Fasting Seta. So it feels like they're actually not playing around that. And the fact that they actually have a top laner, it's like, oh my God, they can actually play the game through all 3 lanes. And they
So
seem like
you
they're just so
attribute
motivated.
this to Dokla instead.
I don't know. I just attribute it not to Dokla. I attribute it to Jenkins. It's a negative
not
thing that I'm
Jenkins.
attributing
Jeez.
to Jenkins. You know, I'm not a positive person. You know, I'm not gonna sing people's praise. I'm just trying to bring everyone down.
Sorry, Thomas, I can't protect you on this one, dog.
I think that's a fair point, and certainly at least Dokla has been. I mean, he's been much more willing to play aggressively, which has been. He's a more fun player to watch. I'll say that in the games.
He's definitely better than Jenkins. I was joking. He's clearly like a lot better than Jenkins, and he actually looked like he was pretty good. Like when you compare how he looks coming in to like somebody like Gamsu, night and day. Like just look like 2 completely different players. I know you like Gamsu, but I'm gonna have to flame him on this.
You can flame Gamsu. I like him personally. That doesn't mean I am in love with the way he plays League of Legends at the moment. That's fine.
Okay. Yeah. Just so you know, like he's gonna get it whenever we get to Dignitas.
At least you give him the heads up. Jace, Jason, Yone here for Dokla. For me, I thought it was the play of a Blaze, or not a Blaze, a PalaFox. I thought PalaFox looked just more solid. I think because there was the game where I think Contracts was getting called out. He the way his pathing wasn't great, and just kind of like in certain areas there was. Even on the Yone Dokla, it was cool that he picked it, but I don't think that was the big factor there. I think it was the fact that PalaFox was kind of like stable in the mid lane, allowing the composition to play around himself, and he was making plays on the Taliyah. I thought that was an interesting thing. So, but I like the fact that you're willing to give the props here to the squad, because I thought, along with Monty, it feels strength of schedule. They catch TSM with their new roster figuring it out, Mia and Maple coming on in, Golden Guardians with Stix A. I mean, they don't really have an excuse. I think they should have, the Golden Guardians would have been better than CLG. And then what was that last match? This is Dignitas, right? That match was messy. That was just a messy match, but they ended up coming out on top. But CLG finding themselves at the top of the table along with Evil Geniuses and Team Liquid. 100 Thieves at 2-1, and then everyone else has a losing record because some of the teams that looked really bad beat each other. So, what is another team that you want to dive into here, Monty?
Wait, does anybody know if Leader is actually in North America right now? Because I know he's signed. He's not.
I mean, at least like last week he wasn't. I was watching him play. I can literally look at his eWest account and let's see when he last played it. Let's see. Let me just do the quick check right here. And why did he have to name himself? They changed a rune to name after him, so now it's like difficult to find. Yeah. No, yesterday he was playing in EU, so he is not.
I just really want him to be on Golden Guardians main roster. Is my point, because I would infinity rather watch Leader be Leader in LCS for my own entertainment than have to watch more Golden Guardian games without Leader. So I'm hoping that maybe eventually he'll make his way over to the Golden Guardians Academy and get promoted to the main roster.
Well, I mean, it's all about the green card, right? That's what they need. So,
well,
they're just waiting on
the visa, not the green card, but yes.
Doesn't Olleh need a green card?
Olleh would need the green card, I suppose.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
Olleh needs a green card because they have 2 imports already, so they can't play him yet.
I imagine that's probably coming pretty soon, though, for Olleh.
Yeah, I'm not sure because because he did that weird thing where he was in America for a while and then he went back to Korea for a while, so now it might be harder for him to get the green card. So we'll see.
Or you would promote him with Chime, right? Or Acadian, which I don't think that's the play.
No, they're not getting rid of Olleh, I don't think. I think Olleh is like one of the only reasons they ever win games, to be honest.
Yeah, I think he's pretty core to this team's lack of success right now.
Well, aren't they both? I would say both Olleh and Pride Stalker are core to how they play. I think so. So it feels like you can't really get Leader in there if you're not going to take one or the other out. It feels very,
like I said, like Dom said, I think it depends on the green card situation. But I do hope that day comes, because I would actually really enjoy seeing Leader be able to play on a main roster in LCS. I think at the very least it would make the region more entertaining.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know if it'll be like exciting or just sad seeing players that you like then slowly become NA players where they want to play a certain
we've been
way.
dealing with that for years. I'm numb to that pain now.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't want to see like that happen to Leader. It's not even for me really. It's just it's mainly for him. It's like for his sake, I hope that the visa doesn't come and he just like gets on an LEC team randomly. It's like, oh man, he has visa issues. He has to stay in Europe. Oh, what a shame. Oh shit. Misfits explodes and they need a new mid laner because Vetio just refuses to play with the animals on his team. Okay, perfect. Throw him in there. Let's see what he does, and then we repeat the process of season 9 once again. That's what I'm hoping for.
Jeez.
It may well happen. It may well happen.
A team that does have a new mid laner, Cloud9, who went 0-3. They were not able to muster anything in their games. But Jensen is back. How do we feel about the swaps? Is it just hard to tell anything because of the bot lane performance? What do you think?
Yeah, their balling's pretty fucking bad, to be honest. I watched King die to solo package twice, and to me, it was just like, dude, you've been playing pro for 9 years. Like, if at this point, Corki package is too much, like, it's not like, oh, you had a brain fart and you walked into Corki package. It actually looked like Corki package just counters Senna. It's like, holy shit, Corki package, he puts it on the floor, and for some reason, it has a magnet in it that attracts the Senna to the center of the fucking Corki package, and it just 100-0s him every single time. Like, it was actually insane that's a thing. So, to be honest, like, I didn't think that King and Destiny were that bad until this week. I was like, oh, they're probably gonna
really
be like, okay.
You watched Immortals last split and you didn't think Destiny was that bad?
Yeah, I mean, he played pretty well the split before, so I was like, oh, maybe it's Immortals. I don't think that. I think that whole team made everyone look even shittier than they were. But I mean, even on Immortals, like, I think that out on Immortals, he looked like a bad LCS player. But like, he looked like a bad academy player in these games. Like, they were just terrible. So I didn't think that there would be a major liability in the games that were played, because it wasn't like they were playing against crazy fucking good bot lanes. They were playing against Stixay, who just came back from coaching, and Olleh. They're just getting solo killed in those fucking games. So that was surprising for me. Like, maybe I was just delusionally positive about how good King and Destiny were, but I just didn't know that they were like terrible.
I mean, I think Destiny has been really, really bad this year. So many of those Immortals games where like he would randomly over-engage into the enemy team and just Nautilus. He would like hook into the enemy team and just die when there was no one else around, and like his communication looked really off. And you have to remember that Nautilus is historically his best champion, like across his career. And so for him to then take his best champion and do very badly on it was like a massive red flag for me. And Immortals was a mess, obviously, for a lot of reasons. But I think with C9, like moving away from the bad play of their bot lane, which I guess can be expected, these players are new to playing with each other as well, right? So the issue for Cloud9 is that they didn't even get their own like boot camp, because Sven wasn't able to go to Korea. So like half of them were out there just solo queuing. Then Fudge got COVID and then got trapped in Korea for a while and was still recovering on the way back, so couldn't be there in person. So you have, again, multiple role swaps on this roster. Fudge going back to top lane, which you think he could acclimate to relatively quickly, right? But also, I think there is a factor of the teleport changes being implemented that he may not be used to, having primarily worked on the mid lane in the offseason, although that role, can have those TPs as well, but it would be used differently than it would be in the top lane. So right. He has to reacclimate to this role. We have Sven, who is swapping roles, who never really got to practice with his lane partner or with the rest of the team because he wasn't, as I understand it, in Korea, right? And then you get Berserker, who then loses his passport and his visa, which is the most pro player thing to ever do. I don't even know how you do these things. It's truly amazing. Every time I think that the pro player general life skill bar can't be set any lower, somebody lowers it again. It's like they're playing staying alive limbo where the bar just gets lower every time and somebody goes under it. And I just wonder, how are these functional human beings in the real world? So he
Wait, but they're not in the real world. They're in esports. Like,
exactly. But I mean,
no
when
one's
they
a functional human
in their
being.
brief encounters with the real world, like these situations, it always turns out disastrously, right? So, it is. This has been like this whole year has been a fiasco for Cloud9, from the LS incident to Summit mental booming to the whatever is going on with everybody's visas and ability to travel. Some of it has been caused by the players themselves or by the individuals themselves. Some of it has just been horrible luck with the pandemic or governmental situations, right? But this whole year for Cloud9 has just been terrible. It seems like everything that can go against them has gone against them. Some by their own doing, some just by an act of God, right? But given all of these circumstances, it did seem unreasonable to expect that they were going to be doing well coming into this first week. However, it does look like Berserker is in the US now, so maybe they will finally start getting some practice together as a unit, and we'll actually see what this roster is capable of. I don't anticipate that they are going to be ending the split in this dire situation, because on paper, their roster, I still believe in it. And I think Sven can accommodate himself very well to a support role. At the end of the day, it only really matters if they make playoffs, right? And then it does, as long as they can make a deep playoff run, it's totally fine. And considering the top 8 teams make playoffs, I don't think
is it top 8 now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait, they changed it back to top 8 for summer?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Well, that's terrible. Well, shit.
Well, not for Cloud9.
All right. Wait, where did they announce that? I thought it was only 6. Fuck.
No, I think because it's the Worlds, I think it's top 8.
My god, it's the worst format. You have an 18 game, 18 best of ones per team for only 2 teams to be eliminated. That is crazy. Yeah.
And then you can play 18 more games just in the playoffs, right? Very
wow.
easily.
I thought that they I don't know where I thought I heard that they changed that.
You could be right, but I mean that was, I would assume that it's still going to be the top 8 teams. I would assume that that's going to be the case. Because this is the World's qualification. And because last year spring was 6 teams and summer was 8 teams.
Oh, that is yeah, that's tough. That's tough. Well, I mean, I guess we'll see how that goes. I mean, that makes it really easy for them then. I thought it was
right. That's why
6.
I'm not panicking or anything, right? Because
I thought it was 6, but I still wasn't gonna panic because I mean, think about how bad some of the teams are, like Immortals, FlyQuest, Dignitas, Golden Guardians. Like that's 4 bad. Like, and that's even like like come on. Like I don't trust TSM to actually be that good. Like you should, like, if you get into good form, you should at least be beating 6 of the teams consistently.
Right.
You know?
And honestly, I would argue in Cloud9's case that it's actually very good for them that they faced EG and Team Liquid in this weakened state, because I think they were, given the other problems, even if all of their players had been there, I still think they would be underdogs given their situation of role swapping players. And all the other problems they had in advance. So even if they had been able to get all their players into LCS at the same time, they still probably would have lost both of those games. They wouldn't have been the favorites. So for them to kind of ditch games that they probably would have lost anyways, and then that buys them time and to get onto the parts of the schedule that they were more likely to win, I think is actually probably quite good for them.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I mean, look, I feel like they probably should have been able to win at least one of these games. But they looked like they were individually not having the best weeks either. I mean, Blabber specifically was the one where, normally he's pretty dominant in fucking, I mean, in Summer Split, he sometimes has a bad go of it, but generally he's pretty dominant in regular seasons. Like he just kind of shits on everyone. And if he's just going to be an average jungler, then it's going to be tough for them because like Fudge is not going to be a super standout immediately. And I feel like Jensen is still trying to find his place in the team. And when you look at his champion pool, he plays three drastically different champions, right? It's like he's the control mage on Victor, then he's playing like the long range hyperscale on Corki, where he's like a main source of poke, and then like the other game he played was the Yone game, which is, you know, a very generally aggressive pick where you're trying to like get leads in the mid game, so you're able to just be a huge factor in team fights. So I just don't know what he's going to decide on, but I'm pretty sure that this team, if it becomes like standard LCS, it becomes this Azir Corki meta, I'm pretty sure they should be able to just hone in on a couple champions that they're really good at in their roles. And, you know, if Jensen is playing control mage versus control mage against people like PalaFox, against people like Blue, against people like PoE, people like Ablaze Olive, people like Takui, I think he'll be fine. Like he'll still be better than them. I'm sure of that.
I think the biggest point of concern for me with Cloud9 is that when you have teams like this, and I think we saw this with Team Liquid as well in the spring split, where they don't have really any time with their full roster before the season starts, it's really hard to form a cohesive team identity because you're just prepping week to week and constantly putting band-aids on problems. And so I'm concerned that you have a player that historically has been very good, but has been inactive. You have two players role swapping. You have Berserker, who can't really speak English, trying to talk to Sven and follow. I mean, I assume Sven is probably going to be the primary shot caller of this team with Blabber. So you basically are starting from scratch when it comes to how you want to establish your team identity and how you want to play the game. And they're just going to all be thrown into it in the middle of the split. So given that they are not going to have any time to figure out this identity before Worlds, they kind of just have to pray that they make top 3 and then use the Worlds break to actually fundamentally fix any problems that they might have. But that's going to be really hard. And I think you see Team Liquid looks much better now because they had this break. They had this Korean boot camp to address a lot of the issues that they have identified, right, throughout the spring split. And it's done them a huge amount of good, but you're just never going to have that. So I think you're going to see a lot of the same kind of issues that you saw with Team Liquid last split, with Cloud9 this split, if they get all of their members onto stage at the same time, right?
Yeah, a lot of band-aids are going to be.
I mean, it's literally it's almost exactly the same situation. You have a player who's role swapping with Whippo. You have a player that's not there with substitutes, right? And you have a player who hasn't been playing on stage in Bjergsen's case. So it takes a while to warm these things up again. And it's really, really, really hard to make these shifts as a team when you have no time to play for a few weeks together and really build your team's identity.
I love that one, Monty. I didn't even think about that. So great parallel across. And don't worry, Cloud9 fans, you've got Counter-Strike. Right?
So are you saying that what they need to do is fire their coach on the second week again?
Gyoto did get fired, though, so no. There it is. Keep the same parallel.
It wasn't Gyoto's fault that any of that should happen. And if anything, I would say that looking at Team Liquid's success, you would say, okay, well, when Gyoto had the chance to like actually get his team together and prep them properly for a split, it's been much more successful.
Yeah. Let's dive into that Team Liquid squad. A perfect game. Rarely do we get to see that happen. A perfect game against Immortals, as well as the dominant wins against Cloud9 and against Dignitas. This team, we've got 3 undefeated teams, and so we'll go ahead and wrangle in Evil Geniuses here. Are Evil Geniuses the favorite here, or is it Team Liquid? Based off of TL.
Yeah, I'm still saying TL. Like, I don't know. I mean, TL's got to be able to win NA with their roster. If they can't win NA with their roster, it's like one of the most. It would be such a classic NA thing because for some reason it's like you take whoever and you put them in NA and then they just go full NA. They're always disappointing. It's like I just want to see someone actually live up to like my expectations aren't that fucking high. We're literally in the 12th season of this game, and I'm like, all right, Team Liquid, I just want you to beat like 2 fucking rookies that like literally are just started playing the game. Like 2 rookies, and then I want you to get out of group stage. Like I want you to be better than a.
That's a
than
very
the-
reasonable expectation. First at
That's
NA,
it.
out of groups at Worlds. That is, I think that's extraordinarily reasonable. This roster was designed to do damage at international competition. Like there is no way you spend the amount of money that they have spent and have any other expectation, especially when Worlds is in NA this year. Steve on this show said that the reason why they were able to get this money to put together this roster was because Worlds was in NA and they can do activations for these sponsors at NA events. So it would be catastrophic for this team not to make Worlds, and it would be very bad for this team not to get out of groups at Worlds. Like maybe they get unlucky with a group draw, but at the end of the day, this group of players is competitive on an international stage. We know that because most of them have proven that before.
What about Bjergsen? That's the question.
Excuse me.
Most.
Bjergsen got out of groups at Worlds in 2014.
Ah, yes, when Svenskeren named his solo queue account, and I quote, his solo queue ID was Taipei Ching Chong, and then he got banned for the first 3 games. And then SK actually ended up in the next 3 games. Yeah, they won. So they probably were better than TSM. So nice. They got out of group stage.
To be fair, that game that they played in group stage where Svenskeren was actually playing was one of the biggest clown fiestas ever in like a Worlds group. I mean, that was hilarious that SK actually managed to win that.
Yeah, last time that Bjergsen got out of groups, Danny was just a twinkle in his daddy's eye. It's been that long.
I don't think that's where
I was actually joking as well, because I think that TSM roster was not very good. And I do still like to taunt Amazing about the fact that they thought that they were going to make a deep run at Worlds and that they won a game versus the eventual world champions when that team was trolling them. But anyway. Yeah, I do think though, like Bjergsen has not had a great history of success at Worlds, but some of the other players have proven their mettle, I would say. And the intention of putting this roster together is very clearly to do well at international competition. And there are no more excuses. Like we don't have the core JJ green card excuse anymore where they didn't get to practice as a team, which is super valid, by the way. And they have had time off. And like I had Gyoto on Summoning Insight today, so you can go watch that show and just hear what he says about the team. But he talks about their Korean boot camp extensively, how they were able to finally, as I was pointing out earlier, really focus on their team identity for the first time because they couldn't do that in the middle of the split and decide how they want to play. And I think that indecisiveness was really one of the core issues with Team Liquid, is that they were like playing all these different styles week to week. And it's like they almost
at some point, somebody has to be smart enough to realize when you have one of these super teams, this is the trap that every single one falls into. They always think, oh, we can play through top and bot, and that's the point of a super team. We can do everything. You have to fucking know that going in. So when I heard people saying that, it's pissing me off because on this show we were talking about that last split.
Sure.
Like, just pick a fucking identity. Like, just do something.
We did say that, but also, you know, I will say Gyoto does not have a history of coaching with this level of player and talent. And so like in the past, I think he's been really good about selecting, you know, making very deliberate plans and controlling the way the roster wants to play. He's not going to have that level of control with this group of veteran players because they are going to have their own ideas. So I think in a way, their failures in spring are actually forcing them to make a lot of these decisions now, whereas, and it might be a good thing, because if they had done well in spring and just kind of rolled to a title, being the indecisive kind of nebulous lump that they were, I'm not sure they would have learned any lessons. And I think in the long run, this might actually make them more dangerous at Worlds because they've had to take a step back, be very serious about their boot camp. He said that they went and did basically team building retreats in Los Angeles before they went to Korea. Then they went to Korea, had an extremely successful boot camp, and they do look significantly more proactive, significantly more decisive now that they've come back to the LCS. So no one's going to remember that they didn't do that well in spring if the result is that they win the LCS title and make it out of groups at Worlds. It will be seen as a success. So we'll
remember and we'll flame them for it.
Sure. But I think there were a lot of extenuating circumstances. And at least we can say they have trended significantly in the right direction and appear to be taking the steps necessary to fix the problems that we commented on.
Even if they don't make Worlds, they still can do the activations in North America. So there you go, Steve. You got it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the sponsors are going to be over the moon about that one. They'll be like, well, guys, we didn't get to be on stream in front of millions of people and have our sponsors there, but at least you shook the hands of 500 fans at a stadium in San Francisco. Yeah, I'm sure they're going to be real happy with that one, dGon.
It depends. It depends how high up.
You fell into the Riot trap. Riot's like, what if we prioritize the in-person fan experience by taking Worlds to all of these different cities in these regions so that we can make a few thousand people happy instead of making millions and millions of people happy by having double elimination and not moving all over a fucking country or a fucking continent? How about that, Riot? How about that? Why don't you make the majority, 99% of the fans happy by having a good fucking format instead of making 1,000 fans happy that you came to their shitty-ass city? Thank you.
I did not have on my bingo card in the first episode of the summer split. We're already going into Worlds format.
Hey, look, you're actually here. We've actually started successfully to prove that Riot knows what good formats are. I thought that they were just so ignorant about sports and esports that they just didn't ever look at anything else. So they refused to acknowledge they exist. But Valorant proved that they actually do know what double elimination at major tournaments is. And you're casting a tournament right now that knows what GSL groups in a MOBA are. So it's actually very interesting that they themselves are admitting that they were wrong, but for some reason are paralyzed from making these changes at a Worlds or MSI level.
Let it be known for the record, I love Wild Rift. All right. Cool.
Hey, look, they're doing it better. How can Wild Rift, the same game on mobile, have a better format than the fucking World Championship? How is that allowed to happen?
Good question.
I feel like Riot actually doesn't care that much about League, and they just tried to like take all these lessons from League and then just apply it to all the other things that they're fucking doing. Like, I feel like that's their League is just their guinea pig, and they're like, okay, let's try co-streaming. All right, that's working pretty well. Okay, so now fuck all the co-streamers, and we're gonna have Shroud co-stream Valorant. Perfect. Like that's gonna be the trade-off.
Well, to be fair, nobody would watch Valorant Esports if Shroud and Tarek weren't co-streaming it, so they actually need that.
They need it for now. Final thoughts here.
Not that many people are watching LCS when there's not co-streamers either. Like if you're looking at the numbers.
Funny you actually mentioned that, Dom. I looked up the stats for summer 2021, the first week, versus summer 2022, and literally Team Liquid versus Cloud9 this year was the most watched match in terms of peak viewership, and it was, and this includes co-streamers, by the way, and it was down over 100,000 peak viewers from last year, the same matchup on the same day, week 1, day 3, where it wasn't even the most viewed match. It was FlyQuest versus EG was the most viewed match of the first weekend last year.
How the fuck was that?
Yeah, what?
I think it may have been because of the Jose Deodo and the Latin American stream. That's a possibility.
I don't know. How could that be more like there's like it's like an extra 10,000 fans. That shouldn't be like.
To be fair, the difference was about 10,000 fans. To be fair, the difference was. I'll look it up for you right now, Don.
There it is, Tom.
He's like, how was it? EG LCS summer. Oh no, it was the second most watched. So the most watched match was actually C9 versus TL.
Okay, that makes sense.
Last year, but it was only about 6,000 peak difference. So both weekends,
the same day?
C9 versus TL. Yes, they were on the same day. C9 versus TL, and it probably was just the start of the next game, if I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But that both matches, C9 versus TL, and the difference in peak viewership was over 100,000. It was 149,000 for this day, this summer, this match, and it was 262,000 last year. So
nice, that's going well.
Cool. Going great.
Well, I mean, you got to remember, dude, it's still like they need some time. See, the reason why the LCS was dropping in viewership was because of all these co-streamers being so negative all the time. So now that co-streaming is only on select weeks, that means that the majority of the weeks aren't co-streamed, so Riot can control the narrative and they can really like push all their talent and everything into making a more successful league.
I want LCS to die so I don't have to watch it anymore. So I am 100% behind these changes.
I mean, I would like LCS to live, like, because I literally just get paid to watch it. Like, it sounds like it's a pretty fucking good deal for me, you know? So, I mean, it would be really nice if, you know, we were still in 2020. If we were 2 years ago where before I got banned, where I was getting 25K viewers, that was pretty okay. I'm down to go back to that.
Well, I'm plugging it now. If you want the good old days of League, the mockumentary Players on Paramount Plus was very funny. The first episode is one of the funniest things I've seen ever, just because of how well it depicts what it's like to be on a team. So you want some good old days of League of Legends, go get Paramount Plus and go watch.
I have lived in this world for 20 years. I literally in my free time do not want to spend more time watching idiot professional players, which are the worst part of being in esports. I like the competition, but I could do without all of that shit. And at the end of the day, when I'm done with esports, I'm not like, yep, let me just watch some more of the worst part of esports. That's surely going to entertain me. I'll skip it.
But they got it pretty accurately. The first episode.
I'm just telling you. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoy it. I hope other people enjoy it. I'm just saying why I would not enjoy it. You know.
Yeah. Final thing about LCS that we wanted to hit. We got to see the first bit of Maple and support Mia for TSM. Not quite as successful as they wanted to be kicking off, but they do know, Coach Chowie and the rest of TSM know that this is a very similar to kind of like what we were saying about Cloud9. They're now getting together and they're trying to gel together. What did you make of Maple's debut here in the LCS for the whole first week?
I mean, this team.
And what do you expect for him?
It is objectively better than their team last split, but I think you see that they haven't. Now, what's going to be interesting to track is the following: are they playing this way because they haven't had time to gel, or are they blind picking Rumble and trying to play the same Rumble Jarvan comps that they played last stage because they think it's good? Because if it's the latter, they're going to be in real fucking trouble. If it is the former, then hopefully they will move away from some of these comp selections that they have made, and find a style that works for them. Maple is obviously a ridiculous upgrade for them in the mid lane. Mia, I haven't seen enough to know exactly what was going on. It's not like support play was a shining star for them in the last split, so probably couldn't be worse, I would say. But is this team realistically going to have a great performance? The ceiling is probably higher, but not high enough to compete with many of the other top teams within this league. So I guess I don't even really understand the point of getting Maple.
It's to I'm being honest, at least win some fucking games, because they were so bad before that it's like, I mean, they just want to at least like make playoffs. They're trying to go back to being like 2018 TSM where they just get eliminated first round, and it's like, oh, okay, you know, like that used to be the worst part of their history. Now that's what they're aiming for. I mean, but you're just not like, I don't know, you're not winning anything with Tactical unless he starts actually playing better. It's so weird because I watch it. Tactical is good.
The Tactical is, by the way, my dog of the week. I can't watch these games where he has flash and E up on Ezreal and then just gets caught out and dies like over and over again. I mean, it was not a good performance. And for me, I just don't understand the point of even spending money on Maple. Like, it's just a bad business decision. Like, what in what? I mean,
how much money did they actually have to spend on him though? Like,
I'm sure his buyout wasn't cheap.
From anyone's legend.
Why would you give him for free to TSM?
I mean, I just feel like he wasn't getting. I mean, I know what he was getting paid in Flash Wolves, and like,
that's very different. Yeah, he was getting paid nothing in Flash Wolves, but I don't know if he was getting paid nothing in LPL. And even if he was getting paid nothing in LPL, if they thought they could wring money out of TSM, they may have taken him for a ride. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that it would be just like significant. It's not like a sword art type thing where they're spending a fucking like massive bag. Like I would be very surprised if Maple is one of like the top 10 paid players in this league. So I just think that he just didn't have a ton of like crazy good options. You know, like he was somebody who tried to make the like every time he's gone to LPL, it's hurt his career. He went to LPL 2 years ago, looked bad. He was on a bottom team, then went back to Flash Wolves, looked good again. Okay, he goes into Anyone's Legend, who used to be Rogue Warriors. He essentially was benched. Like Forge was the person that was getting most of the time anyway. So I feel like, you know, he's just not someone who had a really good setup, to be honest. Like I mean, I don't think that he was yeah, I mean, I think that it makes sense for him to go from a like he was a sub on a bottom LPL team and then he went to TSM. So I feel like TSM just they got a player that's going to be serviceable and they're trying to just not be complete shit. That's it.
Yeah. Maybe it's one of those things where the new.
I just think you should just be
investor-
complete shit as a business decision. That's all.
He should.
All right.
I think it's just one of those things where you got to make the investors happy. TSM have investors now, big boy investors, and it's like, why are we at the bottom table? Can't be at the bottom of the table. But all right. Well, I guess
I'll say. I mean, I said this on stream. I'll say it again. The team was better when Reggie was verbally abusing everyone. That's all I'm saying. I'm not.
That is objectively true.
Yeah, I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying that this is my observation, just completely neutral third party observation. Just I've been watching and I can say that they were better when they were being verbally abused.
Allegedly.
The team was also better when Peter Zhang wasn't taking handouts to put players on the roster, though. So these things might be connected in some way.
I mean, it's all right. Okay. I thought he was taking handouts for a while. You know, I don't know how long he was taking handouts. Like, he might have won a championship with that. To be honest, who knows?
Jesus. All right. That is week 1 of LCS there. Let's turn our focus to another league that had their first week, the one that a lot of our fans will be happy about. Let's focus in on the LEC. LEC started with the return of Niski coming on in, and he gets his first win. And
Wow, are
G2's
you
on
telling
top.
me that Niski is a better player than Reeker?
I
Surely
am
you
saying-
jest, dGon. Surely you jest.
I am saying it was a great debut for Niski, and I will always be a fan of Niski because I think that was my first interview in the LCS. I think he was on Envy at that time. So congrats, Niski. Welcome back. But G2 on top, Fnatic, Mad Lions, Excel, and Astralis all in that second place tie at 2-1s. Team BDS with the best Baron leash of all time. There's a lot to dive into. Let's start there. What the fuck was that? Vitality were about to lose, and they just straight leashed Baron and
Walked
ran
away
away.
from it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the worst
That
Baron
was-
decision of all time.
That was actually shocking.
Like, look, you can't say anything about coaching when that just showed how fucking bad the BDS players' instincts are for this game. They have no natural instincts for like. You can't.
You actually, as a coach, are completely powerless in that situation because if players do that, all hope is lost, right? There is no like fire anybody who made that call instantly. Fire everybody who followed that call. If
the whole
that
team's
is
done, okay.
Or would you shed a tear? Syncroft is maybe the only good player.
Literally, I would say, Academy team, you're coming up. We're swapping.
That's
I would
actually
literally
fair.
play the full fucking Academy team. I don't like.
I would do that too. Actually,
I actually think it would be better. I like Adam Crowney. I mean, there's nothing that showed me that Aggressivo is like some really insane LEC ready player. You know, even when I was watching him in finals, like of LFL, I was not super impressed by Aggressivo. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, like even though they're fucking like I've been watching LFL, their Academy team is struggling. But I've never seen anything that fucking bad in a tier 1 league. I've never seen anything even close to that disgusting fucking Baron call that they did. Like the Barons had 1400
really
HP in their turning. It was so gross. It made me actually just so fucking angry inside seeing this. And when I see that, I feel so fucking bad for Grabs because there is no coaching players that are that naturally bad at League of Legends. Like these are just instinct things. Like you should know as a team, the Baron's too fucking low. We got to just kill the fucking Baron. Like, we have to flip it. Like, if we want to go into review and figure out, oh, well, we shouldn't have flipped it in this situation, so be it, you know? Then you go through that call. But you've already committed to the flip. Like, you've gotten Baron to 1400 HP. Smite does 900 base. Like, Smite does 900. You cannot turn at 1400 HP, especially when they're damaging it over to the wall. That's just crazy. Like, it just made me so sick of watching BDS.
I actually don't understand. Like, I don't get it. There's nothing that I can say about this. Like, I don't understand how Crownshot is on their academy team and is not in this team instead of Xmatty.
Yeah, I don't know who's making.
He's literally, you have him on a contract, just fucking put him in. He's way better.
Xmatty is just not it. It's like so obvious he's not it. He did the
Zion,
king,
baby,
bro. He did the king. He walked into the victor for no reason and killed himself. He killed himself for no reason in game. Like, please bench him. Like, we've seen. You know, this is how you know. This is how you know that Xmatty's fucking bad. All right, this is how you know Xmatty's fucking bad. They draft Senna Sion, and instead of having Xmatty play the Senna, they have Xmatty playing the fucking Sion. That's how you know. Like, why would you want your AD carry playing the Sion? It makes no sense. Why would you want your AD? You wouldn't want the AD carry to play the AD carry champion with like the AD carry mechanics that's gonna have to perform like an AD carry, and then just have the support fucking farm. Maybe he misses 10 CS because he's support main. He has no hands. Maybe he misses 10 CS on the Sion. Great, you're down 10 CS on the side. Like, who the fuck cares? Like, play Senna on your AD carry. Watch anyone else do these Senna combos, man. Like, please. Unless you have fucking Carry on your team or something. And even Carry is not even playing the Senna when they're fucking running Senna, Yasuo, and all this shit. But you get the fucking point. Like, have your AD carry play the Senna. It's so weird, man. It's so weird watching BDS.
All right. Thanks, BDS.
I hate BDS. I hate them. I hate that team.
You know what's also funny is like they still have Limit on this roster, and Limit and Crownshot have experience playing together, and you could literally just reunite that lane. Like, I don't understand what's going on. I don't get it.
Good luck, Grabs. The best coaching work that he'll have to do, or managing work if he's able to get the.
There's no coaching. There's no like. What are you supposed to do? Like, am I supposed to like go into a review? It's like, okay, so yeah, when you're like doing the Baron and when like they can clearly steal the Baron, like you want to at least give yourself a chance to fucking get the Baron. Like, what the fuck are you supposed to do?
Exactly. I feel so bad for Grabs, actually.
Guys, so you want to make sure that when you're doing Baron, you're aware of the HP. Like, turning off Baron isn't a bad thing, but you can't turn at this level of HP. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, you can't do anything with these types of players. You can't do anything. Like, it's doomed. I've seen enough. It's irredeemable at this point.
Relegate BDS. Replace with Carbine Corp.
Holy.
That would
please
explode the league. That'd be great. Okay. I'm trying to think, where do we go after BDS? Let's cleanse the palate here. G2 back on top. No MSI hangover for them, along with EG, both 3-0s. And they look dominant here. Was it you, Dom, that tweeted out the no hangover and Caps is just clapping everyone again?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't expect it. Like, I thought G2 would still be an absolute top team, but they literally got 3 days of practice. Because I watched Yankus' stream, and he didn't even get back to the gaming house until like 3 days before they actually go on stage and have to play. And it's a massive patch. I mean, I thought that these teams that had been scrimming for a while would be able to beat them, but I guess they're just too fucking good. I guess Caps on stage, Caps with stage buff is too insane. So, hey, good stuff for G2. Like, they're definitely going to be at minimum top 2 in this region.
Well, I didn't know how much quality practice a lot of the European teams were getting. Excel went on a Korean boot camp, and I think that it's certainly showing. Like, they played really well, and then probably the most anticipated match of the week, given the way the teams were performing, and Excel's dominant wins was going to be G2 versus Excel, and Caps just went Super Saiyan and clapped everybody in the game.
Just fucking them up.
Yeah, I mean, he was great on the RE, and so it was unfortunately a much more one-sided game than we would have liked, but Excel seems to be really comfortable in this meta. Seems like a great meta for Nuke Duck overall, and it seems like they have done very well as a result of their boot camp. So it's exciting to watch this team that was doing doing better once they put Mykles on the roster and seems to be on the up and up overall, even if we didn't get to see the hyper competitive game because Caps decided to pop off against G2.
Well, we'll see. They have a tough matchup coming up next week. First game on Friday, they have to play against BDS, so we'll see.
It's a real test.
God, I hate BDS. The problem with BDS is they make one game guaranteed unwatchable every single day of LEC. There's one game that they just fucking ruin.
Really? I feel like since you like LCS because it makes you money. I feel like you reacting to BDS games also makes you money.
Well, number one, I can only live view, so it's less money by default there. But then also, like, sometimes BDS depresses me to the point where I literally stop talking on stream and I am just like a quiet fucking husk slouched over in my chair, just not uttering a word for 10 minutes straight. Like, that's what it does to me. It's rough out here, man.
G2 and Fnatic both play BDS next week, so guaranteed ultra claps coming in.
Guaranteed Husky boy about to be on stream.
Well, you know, at least in those games, you maybe get to watch a strong team just have their way with BDS. So those are more interesting. Those are more interesting games.
But that's not like the problem with BDS is that they invent new ways to lose every game. Like, they don't lose by just getting shit on because their players suck. Like, they'll normally get leads. Like, I bet you if you looked at 8 minutes what their goal differential and experience differential is, I'm assuming they're up like at least half the time. They just make sure they always throw. Like, it doesn't matter how they throw. They fought a 4v5 on Dragon without TP where it's like, what season are we in? Because in season 4, we fucking knew this shit. When I was playing in season 2, we literally just knew the basics of, hey, if we're going to fight the whole enemy team, we need to have our team here. Like, that was it. Like, I don't care how it gets done. We didn't know which waves to go on, like how many waves to push top, like when to base, whatever. It's just like, if we're going to fight, we need to be here as 5. It's season 12. They're fighting a straight up 4v5 before, like, they're engaging the 4v5. It's not like they were there as 4 and they're waiting for their top laner, they get caught. No, they opt into the 4v5. They're like, we want to lose. We will lose here. Then they invented the Baron throw, the worst Baron throw of all time. It's just so crazy. Like, they actually are such a disgusting, filthy team. I hate them so much. Like,
I'm enjoying your rants. Wow. The level of vitriol is quite shocking.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen you do that before at that level. I'll think about it as we talk about another team.
I mean, it's just so hard to fucking watch. Like, it just makes everyone mad. Like, look at the Reddit thread. Look at the Reddit thread afterwards. No one's invested in BDS. It's just such like it's so hard to fucking watch it. It's like, please, like, stop ruining the fucking league. Please, man. Have some respect.
Rogues 1 and 2. Do we want to go there? Or do we want to go talk about Fnatic or Vitality? Where are we going next, Dom?
I mean, Rogue's lucky to be 1 and 2. Really,
Rogue should have been 0-3. Well, I mean, so okay, look, I've got one statement for Rogue. All right, I've tweeted it before. Rogue realized that doing really well in the regular season leads to choking in playoffs, but you can't choke in playoffs if you don't make it to playoffs. So they're trying a new approach. They're just gonna run it down.
I thought their approach was. I think their approach is, instead of dominating the regular season and kind of underwhelming in playoffs, they should underwhelm in the regular season, barely make playoffs, and then win. That's the strat now. It's the reverse razor cake.
I mean, that sounds so much harder than not making playoffs. Think about this. Like, you gotta take the player angle, right? If you're going to just go to Worlds and get shit on, you literally, like, there's not really that. Like, I've been there. I went to Worlds and got shit on. It doesn't feel that good. You have to play an extra like 2.5 months where you can literally just get paid vacations starting like early August or some shit. Like, it's like August 15th. You get paid vacation until January 15th. 5 months of just paid vacation to run it down. And think about it from the Rogue perspective. They've all done well enough in their careers that even if they have a horrible split, someone's going to take a risk on them, right? Like, they've built up enough like innate value that they're all guaranteed LEC players for a while. So this is the perfect time. Just phone it in, coast, just
also,
chill out.
IWDominate is the only one with a contract that ends this year. I just looked it up. So in that all of them are safe, right? They're just going to keep getting paychecks no matter what happens at the end of this year.
Holy, it's a strat. Obviously, I'm joking, but yeah, they look like shit. Like, I mean, they looked rough, but I mean, I'm sure they'll be fine. Like, they'll
I'm
be
not
top
worried
four.
about this team.
Yeah, they'll be fine.
The way that you said that, Dom, it reminded me of like the Captain America detention meme. So you made it to Worlds, but you're gonna get shit on.
Well, they also had a hard schedule. I mean, they played Mad Lions, G2, and Fnatic.
Yeah,
this week, and next week they'll have Misfits and Astralis, which is much more manageable.
Those are my top 4 teams, by the way. Like, I mean, I think everyone has those as top 4. I mean, some people are hit or miss on Mad Lions before the split. Like, I just think Nisqy is fucking insane. Like, I think he's so good for a team, especially for Mad Lions, because he was literally just Humanoid light when Humanoid was in God mode. Just had the same shit. They were both playing fucking TF. They both know how to side lane. They both move to fucking plays. Like, they both like know how to.
He doesn't have an ego about the game, so he actually helps his teammates a lot of the time. Like, he's willing to make sacrifices.
Yeah, I want to talk about Mad.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think what's interesting about Mad Lions too is that this is a team that really relied in their historical success. As Dom's pointing out, they did have a mid laner who was active on the map, and that unlocked Kaiser in a lot of ways too. Like, if we think about Mad Lions at their best, it's when Kaiser's all over the map and working with their jungler, whether that was Shadow or Elyoya. And when they had this priority vacuum in the mid lane named Reeker, they didn't really have the same level of agency that they had previously, and it changed their style. And I think it made Kaiser, who has always been a really good support, look much worse than he was, even if he was, I would say he was having an individual slump to a certain degree at the time, but he's just not used to playing in that way. So for me, it was a very smart pickup. It's a return to the way that Mad Lions players have historically played the game, and we're seeing them as a result get back into form.
Yeah, I think that it's really obvious to just see, because like, you don't even need to see comms. Just look at how Mad Lions was playing. Like, when did you see Mad Lions with Reeker like actually go in and contest fucking like pink wards in the enemy jungle at like 4 or 5 minutes? Like, bring 4 people and just start like scrapping over a fucking pink ward. You can see that Nisqy is calling for a lot of the action because he's always the one that's moving first. Like, you can tell why the action is happening by what happens. So go look at the second game they played when he's on Swain, and go look at what they do. It's like, oh, he wants a Raptor ward. He just starts fighting the enemy jungler over a fucking pink ward at the Raptors. He just walks in and just starts fighting. And it's so easy to see somebody like big dicking the game and just follow up on it. You know, like, it's so nice for Elyoya and Kaiser to not actually have to figure out what do we have to do this moment and be like, oh, you know what? Like, this guy is taking responsibility for this play. He wants to fight for the pink ward. Like, he thinks he's stronger now. Cool. I'm here with you. Like, let's fight. I think that it's so good for this team. They look so much better instantly. And I think that they're only going to get better from here. So they obviously
also should be 3-0, obviously. Like, they were dominating Rogue in that game before Carzzy managed to steal Elder Dragon with an Ezreal ult, right? Like, that was a fringe incident, and they completely played better in 99% of that game.
Yeah, and they didn't even have like a super good draft either, so they were like kind of outdrafted, and they were just outplaying Rogue, and then they just made a mistake and everything collapsed. But yeah, I don't care about those types of games, because at the end of the day,
those games are easy to shrug off because you're just like, well, we know what we did wrong. Look at all the things we did right in this game.
They feel like, even though they feel really bad at the end, you like start looking at it. The reason why it feels bad is because you know you're so much better than the team that you just played. Like, you were just beating them you did so much better. You did 90% of the game better than them. 95, 99% of the game better.
You got like a sub 25 minute soul in that game too, right? If I remember correctly.
And they're winning every fight. Yeah. So those are the games where I'm like, yeah, they're like, Mad Lions are playing pretty fucking well. So yeah, I'm excited about them. And I just think it's nice that, like, this is probably the only time in Nisqy's career where him replacing Reeker, actually people were positive about the roster move. This is the first time in his career. When he joined Splice, everyone was negative about him joining Splice. When he joined C9, everyone was like, why are we getting Nisqy instead of Jensen? We're getting a 4th place EU mid instead of Jensen. No one was happy about that. When he went to Fnatic, everyone was shitting on him. Like everyone was like, "What the fuck? This is the roster move that we're getting." Because you got to remember, it was after the Cloud9 collapse. They ended up getting 4th place, not even going to Worlds. Then he joins Fnatic, and the whole argument that everyone had was that he was ruining the league. He was ruining LEC because now Fnatic could not actually compete with G2 anymore, and G2 is just going to stomp everyone because the only 2 teams that are competitive, G2 and Fnatic, and Fnatic just got weaker. They lost their AD to G2, and obviously they, in the community's perception, downgraded their mid. But this is the first time where it seems like people actually have Nisku's back. They're like, oh shit, like he's actually good. Holy fuck. Crazy.
Yeah, hoping more success there as they continue on. Let's go to we were talking about super teams coming together in North America with TL. Let's check in with Vitality over here in the LEC. How do you feel their experiment is going after the first week? 2-1 was Vitality.
Yeah, I mean, it's not looking super good. Not looking that good.
I will. Dom's definitely gonna be really negative, and I think so. They probably should have lost that game to BDS.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to look at it in a positive light, I think most of my criticisms around Vitality last split were that they showed really poor early game synergy, and that they didn't seem to have any idea, like they were not communicating with each other or seeming to have any idea about wave states and like where they could make plays on the map early. And at least in the Misfits game, I saw better coordination between Alfari and his jungler than I saw for most of last split. With Haru's invades, I think that they played, again, Misfits I do not think is a good team, but I think that one positive sign is that they seemed better coordinated and more proactive in that game than in most of the other games that I've seen. And we know that Vitality was sometimes able to out team fight or play in the late game effectively last split, and that was typically how they got their wins, but it was because they were digging themselves out of massive early game holes, which were just very bad mistakes that professional teams shouldn't make. So I did see some positive signs. That would be my take on it. I don't think this team is going to win LEC, especially because it looks like there's a lot of strength across many of these rosters. Like Mad Lions and Excel both look better, and I think Rogue will get back into form, so I think it's going to be a harder split to do well in. But I do think Vitality does look slightly better right now.
Yeah, I mean, they played against what look like the 2 worst teams in the league right now, which are BDS and Misfits. So, and they look like they were going to lose to yes. BDS, honestly. And then the game versus Mad Lions, like I thought that they should have just been doing a lot better, considering that I mean, they had like matchups that you would think would be good. I mean, Azir versus Silas, like you'd think that the Silas would at least be down some CS and would have less freedom in the game. But yeah, I don't really know how to view Vitality right now, because like they're 2-1 in a week where they lost the only game that they probably should have had the ability to lose. And yeah, and I mean, now they're playing against XL next week. I think they looked a lot worse than XL, so I would expect them to lose that match. And then they play against G2, and I would expect them to lose that match as well. So like, I mean, I guess they're just a solid like middle of the pack team, like a 6th place team or something like that. I mean, it's definitely bad results if you compare it to what the super team should be. If you're a super team, you got to at least be going to Worlds. Like that's minimum for a super team, you know?
Yeah, I think if you talk about the expense of this roster, the value is very bad in terms of win per dollar, as opposed to Mad Lions and XL, which are clearly getting better value per dollar spent, right?
Yeah. And you got to also remember, like they paid a fuck ton. Like they paid a fuck ton for this roster. I mean, you've heard it, right? Like Perks literally, C9 didn't lose money on the Perks thing. Like the buyout that Vitality paid is what C9 paid. So they're paying this fucking insane buyout for Perks. And like, dude, they were literally 6th place in summer last year. They went to 5 games with Fnatic. that ended up going on the run. So like, how bad does that feel if you put together this super team, you invest so much more money, and then you end up with middling, like you end up 6th place again? That would be really, really depressing. So gotta hope that isn't the case. I mean, I don't know if Bo's ever gonna play for the team this split. From what I've heard, it might be next split that he actually ends up playing, but maybe that's the saving grace, because if that guy is anything like 2021 Bo, guy's a fucking freak. Like, I've never seen anything like that.
That's the reported plan here for Vitality. 2023 Bo takes over the starting spot, so Haru kind of a bridge for now. We don't know if it's because they wanted away. We don't know if there's like some sort of shadow ban, something that hasn't been spoken, or a visa thing. But as you guys have all said, very expensive roster, because this original roster with Selfmade on it signed a 2-year deal. So 2024 is when the contracts all end, and then they had to get or is that 3-year? Can I do math? 22, 23, 24, 3-year deal. So you're thanks Selfmade. You played 1 out of the 6 splits you signed for, but now you're on the hook for it. So, all right. Closing thoughts here on the LEC before we turn to the next chapter.
For LEC, we could talk. I mean, we said Excel looked pretty good, but we could talk a little bit about Astralis, because they ended up.
Let's talk about Chachi in the top lane making the return.
I think this is smart roster construction. I don't think Xerxes was like the main problem with. I think Immortals had a bazillion problems last split, and Xerxes was. I don't think he was performing particularly badly given the extenuating circumstances around the construction of that Immortals roster and their coaching massive disaster changes and their GM leaving, and then this team performing very badly and they're having all kinds of bot lane issues. So I think if Xerxes going to, I think it's smart because you probably got him on a pretty good deal, and you can reunite him with former teammates in Chachi and Kabe. So at least they have some understanding and synergy, understanding of how they want to play together in synergy. I was not familiar with Junghoon as a player, but he's looked pretty good. So I would say Astralis couldn't be worse, right? So why not try and get some of the old Splice boys together and see if you can create something, take a risk on a young Korean support player. And I don't think that they are going to be a playoff team, but I do think they are a lot better, right? They couldn't be worse with the level of veterancy that they added to this squad.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I thought Chachi's laning looked really fucking bad, to be honest. Like, I don't know. I'm not sold on Chachi. I watched a few LFL games. I can't say I watched every single one, but I never thought that he was the standout in LFL. Like, I thought that there was probably 5 top laners that were all better than him within LFL. Like, maybe even more than 5 that were better than him in LFL. So for me, I don't know. I feel like this roster got a couple easy wins, but I don't think that they're going to be able to get that much better from where they are.
I mean, they beat BDS and Misfits, so I mean, I wouldn't read too much into it, but I just don't think they're the 10th place team anymore.
Yeah, I think that they might be the 9th place team now. I think I would be surprised if they're able to beat Misfits the second time around.
I don't know, man. I'm really low on Misfits right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty low on them as well. I think they're like.
I think this meta is really bad for them. I think this is like not what you want to see VTO on. Like, I just don't. There are a lot of factors with Misfits, but first off, Misfits shouldn't have won a lot of the games that they won. They're like reverse Immortals. Like, Immortals lost games that they should have won realistically last split, and Misfits won a lot of games that they really had no business winning. And it's like some splits you're going to come up on the winning or losing end of a lot of these kind of coin flips, or like you just get lucky when you have 10% win chances and you hit them all in like 3 games, then you win 3 games that you should have lost, or you lose 3 games that you should have won. And I felt that way about Misfits, but also the mechanisms which allowed them to come back in terms of VTO's ability to play some of these assassins in which he was able to take wins on is not there anymore. And then also, even though here it was pretty bad last split, do you really get rid of him? Because like I would have just assumed he had an off split, considering he was pretty good last year, but instead they replace him with their academy player. And also Misfits, I'm not sure they really have a lot of motivation to succeed. Like VTO is out of his contract at the end of this split. And you could make an argument that he really cares about his individual performance in order to get a good new contract. But he's coming off such a dominant spring performance that he's going to get a big contract no matter what. He could be bad this split, and I don't think it really matters. So I think Misfits is really not going to do well. I would put my faith in Astralis before I put my faith in this version of Misfits roster.
Yeah, I just think that Astralis is too bad in lane, to be honest. Like their laning is so bad that eventually, once you start getting any semblance of like cohesion, you start, you know, really ironing out how you want to play these fights, and like what things you actually want to contest. I just think that it's so easy for Misfits to be better than Astralis. I mean, look at how Chachi played top lane, man. Like, look at some of these lanes. Like, look at the Scion game. The Scion game that he played versus Jax. Oh my God. Like, you can't play that lane any worse, right? Like, you really can't play that lane worse. Well, he got solo killed twice by Jax, like pre-6. That is so detrimental to your team that it's almost impossible for your team to come back. Like, it's actually that bad. It's so horrible. So, I don't know. I don't even think that it's going to be a thing where he's going to be able to improve that much at lane. I mean, he took just a while off. Like, it's just hard. You take 2 years off and you actually don't play the game. Like, it takes a while to get back to being a pro laner. And then everyone's just better now. You know, like you think about when the last time he played in LEC, right? 2019, I guess. Was it 2019 or 2020? No, I think it was 2019 Splice, right? That's a long time ago. That's tough. It's really, really hard to get back into that form.
See if I can find that. But
yeah, it was 2019. Although that was the Splice roster that went to Worlds.
Yeah. But I mean, like, he wasn't even super good at laning when he was with that roster. Like, he had his, like, he was
Humanoid was the star of that. Humanoid was the star of that roster. Right.
Yep. I don't know. I think it's tough.
All right. Well, we'll see if they can stay out of the bottom feeding and how far up the leaderboard they can stay before they start their sink down towards the bottom for Astralis. Okay. We got the Western regions down. Those were our first weeks for the Western regions, but wasn't the first week for the LCK and LPL. And let's start over.
It was the first week for LCK.
Was it?
Let's be clear. Yes.
My bad.
But it was the
first
second
week, but it started
third week for LPL.
There we go.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I don't know. They call it week 3, but I mean, there's essentially been a week. So it started on the 10th, right?
Yeah.
So
they had 2 complete weeks. Oh, I see. Yeah, because they didn't play. Yeah.
So they didn't actually have. They've had 10 days. Basically. Yeah, they've had 10 days, and then it just like week 2 started in the middle of week 1. Like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. So
yeah, for our fans at home, there's been however many games at the LCS. What 15 games. For LPL, they've already hit like 40 something, 45. And
they always play fucking more games because they play every single day and they play up to 6 games a day. So
it's a
pretty good fucking region. Hey, all I'm saying is by far the best region to watch, the best viewing experience. Like, it's literally the best region. It's the most aggressive region. There's the most good teams in the region. So there's the lowest amount of shit games in the region. Like, I literally don't know why more people are watching LPL.
Where should they watch it, then?
Watch it on the fucking mainstream. I don't even want you in my fucking chat. All right, watch it on the mainstream. Just watch it. Watch the VODs. Watch the fucking VODs. I don't care. Just literally watch it. You will like it. It is enjoyable to watch. Even the stomps are enjoyable because at least when a team is getting stomped, they still fight. Like, they actually try to play the game. So, hey, all I'm saying, people should invest themselves in the LPL. It's a good investment.
Right. Well, so there are a ton of matches. And we're not quite at Worlds prep yet. So, Dom, why don't you give us an LPL update on some of the biggest matches, some of the biggest storylines, and then what to watch for? We'll wait for what to watch for, but some of the biggest matches, storylines, roster moves.
Biggest matches. Okay, so coming up, we have a couple big ones. I mean, it will have already occurred when this video goes live, but well, we're shooting it right now. It's 8 p.m. Central Time on a Monday. So Tuesday, which will be tomorrow, it'll be before this goes live. We have RNG versus Weibo, which is huge. Obviously, the Shy he is a filthy, filthy inter. He does disgusting things sometimes, but he's hilarious to watch. There's almost no one as fun to watch as the Shy. And Weibo's still a good team. You know, they were top 6 in LPL, which is an accomplishment. Top 6 out of 17 teams when you have all these crazy good teams. For reference, that was higher than EDG placed last split. Obviously, world champions, same roster. They literally didn't even make top 6. They play against RNG, and V5 plays against FPX. Then the day after that, there's Top versus BLG. And then on Friday, there's actually a couple interesting matches. So for me, one of the storylines that I've found pretty interesting is Ultraprime. So Ultraprime is essentially just a team of misfits. It was a bunch of benched players, essentially. You had Elk, who actually came over from WE. You had Cryan, who was benched from RNG, and then you had Zoom, who was supposed to go to top esports. It was this massive storyline. He was one of the best top laners in LPL for all of 2020. Super good, like weak side top player, could play all the tanks, could play like Renekton well. He just was that guy that was super stable in the top lane. And he got benched for Wayward, who was a rookie, who they just moved up from Academy. And now Ultraprime is actually looking pretty good in LPL so far. Like pretty good, meaning they're not a bottom team that's not going to make playoffs. I think they're probably going to make playoffs, like an 8th or 10th team. But yeah, I mean, outside of just the individual teams, I think the most interesting part about it is just that you have so many unique styles. Like you see so many different champions. Like if you're a fan of even streamers, like Agrin started this Ghost Kazakhs Conquer build in Korean solo queue. Weiwei played against it. He pulled it out in LPL, actually smurfed on it. So it's just really interesting to see all the meta picks that they play, and then all the counters to the meta picks that they play, because they're really willing to commit to a lot of the counters. So yeah, I mean, I'm just the LPL merchant, man. I think people that invest time into it generally enjoy what they see.
I love it. The LPL merchant. A couple questions off the top of my head. One of the big storylines coming into the spring was that Uzi had come back to Billy Gaming. He was going to split time with Dago, who was one of the best players that we got to see over at Worlds in 2021. That's not the case anymore, right? That is Dago's spot for Billy, yeah?
Yeah, Uzi is gone. Like straight up off the team, streamer, not going to play one competitive match. He played a couple matches. He like subbed into a couple games. They essentially never won with him. The team didn't look much better. So they're committing to Dago. But yeah, BLG's been having a rough go of it. They just lost 2-0 to Anyone's Legend, who's former Rogue Warriors, which was a perennial bottom team. They're always like between like 13th and 17th in LPL, besides for when like DWG played for them back in 2018 or some shit. So Rogue Warriors have been rough for a while. That was the team that Maple was on. He was benched from it. But yeah, they just got 2-0'd by them. So we'll have to see how long it will take BLG to actually get back into form, but they're expected to be a good team. And the interesting thing about that team is that Icon, who went to Worlds with LNG, has now joined BLG, and it's unclear whether he's going to be the starter or whether he's going to be splitting time, but he is now on that team, presumably scrimming with them, and probably they're going to look to incorporate him in some way because the team is struggling so much.
Yeah, a lot of former PCS players in this. So as you were bringing up, the player that Icon might be replacing, Fofo, familiar, right? Familiar face there. And then as well as, I think you brought up Anyone's Legend. Yeah, that's Betty in the mid lane, right? Or Betty's on that squad as well.
Betty as the AD carry, yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
Yep.
So a lot of pilfering the talent pools of the PCS, former LMS. So yeah, cool. Monty, anything else that you wanted to ask our LPL merchant for our LPL merchant segment?
Yeah, why is JDG doing so? JDG and LNG doing so well right now?
Why? So LNG is not actually doing that well. They've had some fraudulent fucking games. DWG's playing pretty well, but that team is nowhere close to as good as you'd expect when you see the roster put together. I mean, most people.
Oh, I see. They play bad teams too. Okay.
Yeah. So it's strength of schedule, but even in the games they played, they did not look good. So
Okay.
LNG, there's a weird team, right? Because you'd think that LNG without Icon was considered the worst player on the team. He was underrated by people. He actually wasn't bad. He had a bad Worlds, but he wasn't bad within LPL. But Doonby was like the god of LPL last summer. He was by far the best player, MVP. Like, just it felt like he was literally 11-0 every single game on everything he picked. That's how it felt watching him. It was like, holy fuck, what is he gonna pick next? He got like pentakills and shit. It was just crazy. And obviously FPX was the number one team, so they were just the best team. And he was the best player on that team. So everyone thought that LNG would easily just be like top 3, like just be essentially what FPX was. Hasn't been the case. They've never really clicked. I mean, it feels like they all take turns being bad at different times. So super strange team, but I guess they're doing well now. JDG has like a very definitive style. I feel like they all just know their roles on the team. But to me, I feel like JDG is like very capped. Like they're not going to be much better than they are, but they have a style. You know, essentially 369 is generally a weak side top laner. They just have him, you know, on an island and they play to get Kanavi ahead. Yagao has always been good at playmakers. That's been his thing. He was essentially a Zoe LeBlanc 2-trick way back in the day. I mean, obviously he played other things, but he was so much better on Zoe LeBlanc than anything else. And it feels like that team is actually just, they're just solid in general. They make pretty good decisions. They execute good dives. Yeah, they just have like good fundamentals, but they just don't have that like firepower that I believe you need to actually be top tier. So, yeah, I mean, JDG also had an impressive win. They 2-0'd EDG, and a lot of people are looking at EDG to kind of have a return to form. So we'll see on that. We'll see if JDG is going to continue being top tier, or if they'll get passed up by either a Weibo or either LNG, EDG, these types of teams.
Great. All right. Now we have it. So we will dive into some of those matches in with more specificity in next week's episode as as those games play out. Let's move on over to the LCK, where in Korea there was one big move that everyone was talking about here, Monty. And that, of course, for Damwon, the return of the prodigal son coming back and hopefully being the missing piece. Nuguri coming back into the lineup. Obviously, different bot lane, but Canyon, Showmaker, Nuguri completing the trifecta from mid on up. How did this week go for the whole region, but then also, Damwon? How did they look?
First off, go watch my show with Wolf if you are an LCK fan, because we have an LCK specific show now where we go into more depth on all of this. But with that said, important to know that Damwon did kind of get cucked in the off season because they wanted Kana, and like the Nongshim drama or whatever happened and they couldn't get him, and everybody's feelings got hurt and everybody got angry. And so they really did not have, after that failed to occur, they really didn't have a lot of good top lane options. So they were kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel. And also worth noting that Dokdam and Kelling on Nongshim last year were actually a pretty decent, like pretty good, promising up and coming bot lane. And considering that Ghost and Barrel's performance last year was not amazing, like this seemed like a good roster on paper until their top lane fell apart. So having Nuguri back is actually very important to them. Even with their worst roster, they probably should have been in the finals over Gen.G, except for that game 5 where they were unable to convert the insane massive lead that they had with Canyons Nidalee into a victory. So that was, I think, unfortunate for them, and them not playing the most meta composition and getting punished for it because of all of the bounties that were stacking up that were then received by Gen.G, and they were able to take that win. But I will say, Damwon, at the start, they haven't had a very strong schedule yet. Like, we'll get to that. That's actually very exciting for Damwon next week because they play both Gen.G and T1 in the same week, which are both must-watch matches for obvious reasons. Their first match against Fred at Brion, like we didn't really get to see because Nuguri was just playing tanks. Then they come back against Live Sandbox, and they're much more dominant in those games. And I think we see some interesting, like more carry roles from Nuguri. So you actually get to see him doing well again. They seem to be powering up over the first week of competition. Their first real test is going to be this coming week, so that'll be the standard by which we measure them. On the whole, LCK has been pretty fucking boring, gotta say. Lots of long games with very, very, very little action, with the exception of T1 versus Nongshim Game 2, which was a clown fiesta for the ages, basically. Just really hilarious game that T1 had no business winning. And if you guys haven't seen it, so first off, that series
Elder
is
Dragon
worth watching.
game.
That series is worth watching because game 1 is a very decisive game where Korea's playing Yasuo support with fasting Senna. And I think it's actually a kind of an interesting composition, and they win that game very cleanly. And you can see T1 is trying to be a little bit more experimental in the way that they're drafting, which I think is fun. It didn't work so well when they tried to play like the Callista Camille bot lane that they attempted to play against KT Rolster, which was not good. But that first game against Nongshim is interesting. And the second game is just a total fiesta where T1 plays pretty badly in the early game, then magically gets back into it by Bard portaling and sneaking a Baron at 23 minutes into the game. And then there's like 3 Elder Dragons that occur. 2 of them are hilarious fights where Nongshim gets the Elder Dragon, but then everybody dies but Kana twice in a row, and there's like a Gnar quadra kill where he cleans up the fight but then can't win the game because he's just a fucking Gnar at the end. So it is really funny to watch that game. I think as much as you can shit on T1 for that game, I think that the only reason they won that game was because they were T1 and that they were able to figure out ways to get themselves back into that game instead of getting stomped. Yes, Nongshim had to throw the game in order for T1 to catch it, but I think that most other teams would have failed to catch that game. So it's entertaining at the very least. T1 is definitely struggling. Their series against KT, they also probably should have lost. They should have probably lost at 2-0, which is also the same thing we could have said the last time they faced KT last split. So T1 struggling, Gen.G looking pretty good, but again, weaker opponents. Dom1 looks a lot better. And I guess the surprises have been DRX looking kind of good, but I think in a meta where Kingen can play tanks and Deft can kind of scale up into like their team fighting has been their strength. So if a region is just going to handshake, play passive, and scale, like DRX is going to have some inherent advantages that might go away. And then on the other side of that, like KT looked better than expected. Like I don't expect this to be a very good team contending for the title, but they might get into playoffs with the way that they're doing now. Arya looked better in the second series than he did last split. We'll see if he retains the starting role or not. Cuz looked better, and Rascal's been really good. Like Rascal's been the bright spot of KT, the consistent spot all year.
Ooh, that's tough to hear. When Rascal is
look,
bright
man,
spot, you know, that's
he's been a lot better this year, Dom. Like I don't know how many KT games you've watched, but like he's actually been good, which shocked me as well. It shocked me as well. But
I watched a couple games and I just saw Arya running it down completely, and I was like, wow. Jesus, I guess that's the difference between LJL and LCK. Like,
no, I think Arya had good international performances on an LJL team, so I don't know what was going on with him in spring. He was like a lot worse than expected, but Rascal was also a lot better than expected. Like I've never been a fan of Rascal up until this year, and he has had a much stronger individual performance. So if Arya can be better, or if they go back to Vikla, then there is an opportunity, I think, for KT maybe to squeak into playoffs, but that's not saying a lot, right? The upside is that while in the spring it was really, really one-sided with T1, at least the region looks a lot more competitive now. And we're going to have a lot of questions answered, like I said, about Gen.G, Dom1, and T1 when they all play each other this next week. So that's really cool. Unfortunately, like the other big question is DRX going to be a legitimate competitor for a top playoff spot? And we just won't know that next week because they just play a bunch of kind of mid-table or weak teams. So,
yeah. Well, We'll see. We'll see. I mean, I think that LCK, it might appear boring, but one thing that I've learned is that the reason why it does appear boring is because when you play perfect League of Legends and the enemy team is also playing perfectly, then you just don't have these opportunities. You don't just have these massive windows to make plays. So you really just have to appreciate the macro for what it is when you watch LCK.
Yeah, it has not been super stimulating play at this point in time, and teams are definitely just handshaking to play passively. Whether that changes or not, I don't know. And I think it's what's interesting to me, Dom, is that these teams, LCK and LPL teams, are scrimming against each other, and we have and they're on the same patch, and we have two very different metas that have emerged when presumably there is cross pollination going on, and that's very weird to me. That's very weird. That, one region concludes that top lane Kale must be the most picked champion, and the other region concludes that it's Gnar and Sejuani. Like, I don't really get how that's happening.
We've been recording, or just, we were here for a little while. Did we say the stat of game time? Was that live? Was that during our meta talk?
Yeah.
All right.
So, I mean, I find it kind of odd that given that these teams play against each other a lot in practice, that they are deriving such extremely different conclusions about this patch. I think over time we're going to see them, come together more closely. Like, it's always interesting to see the start of a split on a wildly different patch, which is usually in mid-season we don't get a patch of this magnitude, right? So it's almost like the start of the year again. In fact, I think you could make an argument that this is more similar. This is a bigger change than the start of the year patch, right? Because there weren't that many changes that were made. So in any case, it's a very large change. And usually in these cases, like, because teams don't have anybody else to watch in the professional scene, and scrims are not always a good indicator of what is going to be powerful, or like micro regional metas develop, and like one region might figure out something that's really strong that then gets integrated into scrims and taken into the professional scene of other regions. Like, we are going to see a pretty big difference across regions, at least at the start of this, because that's typically what happens. But I'm curious to see in a couple weeks what shakes out, because I assume we're going to see probably a lot more changes to LCK than LPL, but I assume teams are going to start playing more like LPL teams in the coming weeks.
I assume they won't. I assume they're just going to farm for an entire split.
Well, it'll be a real boring LCK season then.
Par for the course. Par for the course.
I want to see if it's going to be a bro day and see if our Reddit Bryans will be able to make playoffs.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I hate watching that team. You know what team I love to hate watch though? I love hate watching Nongshim, because Nongshim is the team. I've said this on my stream a bunch of times, but they're the team of all the players that everyone has sworn to me was really good, and that I just underrated because I didn't watch LCK. Where like Kana, one of the best top laners last year, right? BDD, one of the best mid laners. Ghost, he was the best AD carry in the world. It's just that he was playing a certain style because that's what Dom1 needed. Well, they're all on the same team and they can't fucking win, so I don't know what the problem is. It's strange. I love watching that team. I love hate watching them. Like, it feels so good just to see them just have that horrific game and then just end up losing at the end.
Yeah, I think that you're kind of validated by the fact that Dom1 and Nongshim swapped AD carries, because like surely, Dom1 was like, we should downgrade our AD carry by switching with this other team's AD carry, and surely Nongshim was like, yeah, let's make this trade because that's going to make us better, right? That was clearly the logic, not that Nongshim was in fact forced to have Ghost instead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, they downgraded pretty fucking hard with their top lane in spring, so I don't know what the fuck they were doing. Like,
well, I mean, there, like I said, there were Damwon was struck by contract disputes to not get the player that they wanted. So, and also, I think they would have taken Nuguri if Nuguri wanted to play the game in spring, right? It's back now.
Yeah.
He looks fine.
I love fan logic. Fan logic's great. Okay, there you have it. So let's get to our next segment here that we'll be doing globally. We'll do one game predictions from each region. So we'll pick one game and then we'll make a prediction on who's going to win. And so we'll offer up games that seem to be close, and then we'll decide which game we should decide to pick, and then go from there. So we'll start here in the LCK because you set that one up already, Monty. Which one should we dive into? Should it be the Gen.G match? Should it be where should we go with this?
I think that I would take, because considering that, again, T1 has not looked particularly good. If I had to pick probably one of the more exciting matches, it would be Gen.G versus Damwon Kia. But I don't think that's the easiest match to predict. I think actually Damwon is going to beat T1 in the coming week, just based on their... Yeah, I think Damwon Kia is going to take out T1. T1 should have lost 0-2 to KT. Damwon has they faced kind of similar levels of opponents, but Damwon's come out looking a lot cleaner. And I think that the problem for T1 is that they look really uncomfortable in this meta, and they have been really reliant on Zeus for damage output. And I think that Zeus has a much harder matchup up against Nuguri for him to carry as hard as he has in some of these other games. So I think it's a bad matchup, and I think Damwon is currently the better team. So I think Damwon wins that one.
Okay. There's one bold prediction from the LCK. Dom, give us a match here for the LPL that you feel like we can make a call out and prediction on.
I mean, we could do the one tomorrow that we'll already people already know, but
maybe V5 RNG. I'm really interested in that matchup.
Yeah, I mean the problem is I don't even know if Rookie's going to play for that.
That's
because Rookie hasn't been playing. So
why do we know why he's not playing?
Yeah, his dad died, so he had to go to Korea. So and then there's like harsh quarantine situations. All right, here's one that I think that a lot of people are going to most people will probably think that this is just like a very easy prediction, but I think that it will actually be a close series. Ultraprime versus JDG.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
That's what I want to predict. I'm just an Ultraprime fanboy at this point, but I think the JDG, like they normally just have a really rough game one. I'll go Ultraprime 2-1, even though the more sensible prediction would probably be JDG 2-1. I think Ultraprime can do it. I think Ultraprime has got what it takes. It's really just up to Hacker to not completely run the game down because he does that often. But I want to see this matchup. I mean, I think that Cryan is like, he's playing super well recently. And I think that Cryan was really misunderstood because people just saw him playing like Annie and Galio and all these picks. And they're like, oh, he can only like roam. That's all that he's good at. It's like, yeah, but the reason why he played like that is because that's how RNG functioned. Like when he played Orianna and LPL and like went 50-50 versus one of these like really good mid laners, they never won a game. Like he needed to roam to Xiaohu's lane, dive on cooldown, and that's how RNG ended up winning. So it's really nice to see him play Talia and just be so fucking good at the champion. Like, I mean, he's just it incorporates everything that he's good at, you know, like the roaming, his team fighting on something that has like a unique play style. I mean, he was always pretty good at team fighting on Galio, but it seems like Talia could team fight even better, and his accuracy with his W's are insane. So that'll be my like upset prediction of the week. It'll be Ultraprime over JDG Friday. Also, I'm a JDG hater. I've been a JDG hater for a while though.
I love sliding that in there at the end. Yeah. Okay. Well, then let's turn our focus on over to the West. And let's start at the LCS. Here in the LCS, it looks like Saturday's games are kind of boring, I think. It's Dig, C9, 100 Thieves, Golden Guardians, TSM, TL, EG, IMT, FlyQuest, CLG.
All the games are boring this week.
I'd say Sunday you could go.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, does C9 have their full roster? Maybe they have their full roster.
If they have their full roster, but even then, you know, they haven't really played together that much. This is
CLG versus EG.
A tough sell. CLG, EG, possible 4-0 matchup.
That's it. That's right. Both teams could be undefeated for this.
Wow.
Giga banger where EG Giga bangs CLG. So there you go. EG over CLG.
That sounds good to me. I don't think there's really another game there because unless we're doing
It feels gross to say it, but that is possibly both teams at 4-0 heading into that matchup.
Yeah, I mean it's up to
Probably
Immortals
at
and
4-0.
FlyQuest to
EG
stop
Immortals,
evil
CLG
geniuses.
FlyQuest?
Yeah.
Probably 4-0. That's weird.
Oh, that's tough.
LCS banger of the week.
Well, I mean, this is the problem when you have
CLG.
so many bad teams in a region. This is like what happened to LEC in last summer. It was like one of my least favorite splits to watch. It was like Astralis was terrible. Schalke was really bad. That was when Correa was just running it down every fucking game. And then SK was SK, you know, and so you just had like three teams that were completely unwatchable, and XL wasn't very good either, right? So you've essentially four teams that are really, really fucking bad. And Vitality was struggling too. So that like guarantees that unless they start playing each other, you're going to get like 4 bad games every single day. Like it was really tough. So I think LCS is kind of running into that where you have like, so you have Immortals, FlyQuest, Golden Guardians. Like those are 3 that are just straight up bad. And then you have Dignitas, right? So you have those 4. And that's not even, that's like assuming that CLG ends up picking it up, and then like TSM is like actually not as bad. Like they're just like okay, you know, like there's 4 to 6 teams that are just not inspiring. Tough.
I wonder what their weekly feature team has to do. They see this week and they're like, "What the fuck is this?" You know?
Oh no. I come on. We know what they're gonna do. They're gonna be all in on CLG. It's like the one. Yeah, they're like a drowning man, you know, desperately clawing at a life raft right now. You can't blame them, right? But
it's Luger versus Danny. That has to be the angle, right? It's Luger versus Danny.
Yeah, they're looking for any fucking angle because the teams don't give them anything. I feel bad for them, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the orgs, like there's so many orgs that you just don't believe that they're actually. Like, you see TL's roster, right? And you can like see based off EG's roster, they're trying, right? Like Cloud9 tried and it didn't work, so that's unfortunate. 100 Thieves, you feel like they're actually trying to win the league, but outside of those like 4 teams, who else is really trying? Who else is trying to put together a competitive roster to win, and who's just trying to like scrape together the best they can come up with? Like you can't tell me the Golden Guardians is literally spending like they want to win the league. Fuck no.
They don't have any money.
Investment.
I mean, they don't have any money. They just won the NBA finals. They used all their money on Steph Curry. Okay.
Yeah, I was looking up. They're paying like 223 million in taxes or something like that. Like
but it's okay. Riot will love them because the chief esports people are Golden State Warriors fans, which is why they got into the league in the first place, and because they're letting them use their arena for the World Finals. So I'm sure they're getting a nice discount. You know.
I don't know.
Maybe this is it.
I just never bought that where they're like, oh, we have no money. It's like we're only backed by a fucking like, we're only backed by an NBA team. We're only backed by a multi-billion-dollar company or something. Like, come on, man. Like,
hey, so is Dignitas.
Exactly. So I mean, these types of teams where it's like, what do you mean you have no money? Like,
yeah, see, they're owned by the 76ers, but nobody's told Dignitas yet that you don't actually get draft picks for being the worst in League of Legends. So their entire strategy is just fucked.
I mean,
I really
it's
want
the same thing where it's like,
man. That's all I want.
Look, why do you need to pay James Harden that much money if you're a 76ers? Like, out of everyone you could pay, like, are you gonna give James Harden a max contract? Just let him go somewhere else, dude. It's fucking doomed. Like, you're not gonna win a championship with the core of James Harden and Joel Embiid. It's just not happening, right? So let James Harden go. You know, build around Tyrese Maxey or something and have a good League of Legends team. That's my prescription. That's what I want to see out of them.
All right. Before we go full NBA podcast here, let's move on over to the LEC. Again, God, I can't believe it. EG CLG game of the week. We're going EG. And then for the LEC, I can't believe it. Let's look down here. Mad Lions Fnatic.
Yeah, I think that's the game of the week.
Yeah. Mad Lions.
I mean, it's either that or it would be like Vitality G2.
I mean, Mad Lions XL also good. Come on.
Yeah, Vitality's
Yeah.
on. Vitality's got both games. Both games look okay. Let's.
It's either
I mean, we
I would
spent a lot
I'm
of
more
time talking
excited
about.
I'm more excited about Mad Lions XL personally
Yeah.
than Mad Lions Fnatic, but
I feel like Mad Lions, I feel like Mad Lions XL just isn't that hype because I mean XL, you like sure they might come in strong, but they're so
All right.
capped. Like you can't win a fucking championship with Finn and Nuke Duck as your sole winners, in my opinion.
All right. Well,
Really
let's talk about
can.
Fnatic Mad Lions because I'm actually interested in the Niski revenge match
Yeah,
against
the
Humanoid,
return.
who stole his spot. So
Mhm.
I want Niski to win. This is Mad
Same.
Lions over Fnatic, where Niski gets his revenge. That's see. This story is 1 billion times better than any story
It's
in the
way
LCS this week. It's just like people are wondering why. I wonder why LEC viewership is better. This is why, guys. This is why. I mean, these stories are just the matchups are better, the games are better, the fucking stories are insanely better, and actually real stories instead of all the fake bullshit that LCS. They're like, remember when these teams played each other with 10 different players that are in the Rift right now? That really matters. It's like, no, we just actually have natural drama in over in LEC.
It'd be like back in 2021, PalaFox and JoJo Pune encountered each other in Academy
Fortnite.
Spring 1. Yeah, Fortnite. It's pretty far. I agree. I love this revenge tour for Niski with Humanoid sending him to McDonald's for a split. That's a good one.
I think it's really good. Also, Niski will trash talk too, so I hope they get some good content.
Dom, which way are you leaning on this one?
I'll go Mad Lions. I'll go Mad Lions. I think they had a more convincing style, but I think it's really going to come down to draft, to be honest. Like I think it's really hard to predict. I think that if Fnatic draft the way that they did this week, where they are like prioritizing Draven and things like that, and Hilly's just like running it down, I think Mad wins pretty easy. But yeah, I mean, I think that I don't expect to see Fnatic all in on that style, so there's definitely win cons for Fnatic. I think it's really just draft dependent.
All right, there you have it. Those are our 4 predictions for this week coming on up. Make sure to watch those games. To close out the episode, as we always do, even though Monty alluded it.
Tactical.
You can't even hold it in anymore.
Tactical's a dog.
All right.
A dog can push F on a keyboard though, so I don't know. Maybe he's worse.
Jeez.
Okay.
It's God or dog. We're going dogs first. Monty already went. Dom, who do you have?
So my dog is going to be Vizicachi. Yeah.
He's just old, Dom. Give him a break.
Yeah, I mean he's an old, like it's time we put him down. Let's be honest. Like it's getting to that.
He's going to a farm upstate.
Yeah. Look, we all have the fond memories. Like he was a good boy before, but
Old
at this point
Chachi.
he's just in pain. At this point he's just in pain, and I'm in pain. It hurts to watch. It's like when your dog gets to the end of his life, and it's just it's painful for both of you. That's how I feel at this point. Like I don't want to remember Chachi like this, man. I don't want to watch him get solo killed twice by Sion versus Jax. I want to remember like, damn, like the Chachi Poppy plays. Oh shit, he played Poppy, old Poppy, when everyone thought the champion was dog shit, and he actually picked it. Like the genius, the mad scientist. That's how I viewed him. We're gonna get the split. We're gonna get the Gamsu. We're gonna get the tank top player who clearly can't lane versus the people that are currently in the league and just tries to like be smart. It's like, oh, maybe I can group here. Oh, let's go for a team fight. Oh, we can't team fight. The Sion game was bad. The Gwen game was really bad. That Gwen game was, it was not like, go watch some of those team fights for Chachi. Jesus, it was not it. So yeah, just wasn't a fan.
I think for me, it feels weird, but I feel like it gets glazed over here. I don't know who to put the blame to, but maybe all of Immortals here for getting perfect gamed. Like it has to be someone's fault that happened, but it feels bad to throw that on Kenvi in his first professional game.
I think Immortals is definitely going to be better than they were last split, and also Immortals was not the 10th place team last split. Like I said earlier, they lost games that they definitely should have won. They were better than TSM, but they threw 2 games versus TSM, which is the only reason that they were in 10th place, right? Yeah. So, objectively, they have upgraded. We can argue about Xerxes, but they clearly want to give Kenvi time. But also, I think Power of Evil wasn't even in the country until like a day before LCS started, so they have no practice together. They did win a game and looked better than in most of their games in that win that they played last split. So I don't think they're super bad. I don't think they're the worst team in LCS.
I don't think so either. And again, always Pinoy pride, go Kenvi, but also they got perfect gamed. So I'm throwing.
Look, he's a rookie. He's a rookie. I refuse to believe.
Mean, though? I don't understand like how players like Kenvi who like play academy for 2 years and are like what he's like 20 years old. How he's gonna come into like LCS and it's like, oh, he's a rookie. It's like, bro. Fucking Way comes into LPL at 17. It's like, you better fucking perform, Way. Like, I swear to God, like you're gonna have to play at MSI versus Canyon, and if you don't out jungle him, you're off the fucking team. You hear me? Like, and then like Kenvi, he's fuck it. Like, just give him like 4 years. I mean, the LCS mindset, man, it just triggers me so fucking hard. Like,
I mean, the answer. You know the answer to that question is that they don't actually have to be. They don't actually have to be good. So there's the level of competition just isn't there, right? And Kenvi, I think, could have gotten onto an LCS team sooner. He just didn't want to go to a bad team and then went to Immortals. So I don't really understand that logic. But yeah, I think that was his choice, Dom. I don't think it was for lack of trying from certain teams. But I just refuse to believe that in a control mage meta, that Power of Evil is somehow going to be on the worst team in the LCS. Like, I don't think that is possible. And I think that Ignar is such an insane upgrade over Destiny. And once Kenvi gets a few games under his belt and this team actually has a chance to play together, they surely they must be better than the Immortals team that we saw last split.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, Kenvi is one of the most hyped junglers over the last like couple years. Like, I've even hyped him. Like, the way that he played, he was not playing League. He was not playing League this weekend. He was like he was a completely different player.
that Nocturne game was really bad.
I've played against this guy in solo queue. Like, this guy knows what the fuck he's doing. He's a good fucking player. He's got good mechanics.
Nerves, man. I think it's probably nerves.
Sure, but like
he does seem like a shy boy Filipino guy. Like nerves.
I mean, great. I mean, I'm down with all that stuff. All I'm saying is that like his level, like the expectations shouldn't be like, oh, give him a couple splits. Like if he looks like this for a whole split, like that's an issue. It's not like, oh, well, you know, it's his rookie split. Like, that's not how you should view it. I mean, look at how Danny looked in his rookie split. Look at how JoJo just looked in his rookie split. Like,
well, I think also the instability of the Immortals coaching staff since Kyoto left is probably part of the problem.
I like, to be honest, I feel like LCS is so solo QE anyway. I feel like you could just show your skill. I think that if he plays with confidence, he could really just. Like, you don't have to win the games, but look at what Closer looked like.
Look, Tom, let's give him more than a week, okay?
I'm down to give him more than a week, but like, I just don't want to.
Let's give him more than a week when he literally had no time to play with his team to practice into this split. So let's just give it a week or two, you know?
Sure. But I mean, I'm just saying that we shouldn't be saying like, oh, he's a rookie, like give him some, like we can give him more than a week, but he needs to like actually play League. Like what he was doing was. It's not any of those other things. Like, he is just literally like man up and play some fucking League. Like, just play like you play. He's good. Like, Kenvi is good. Like, I just hope he's not a fucking stage fright choker. Like, I don't want to see him piss himself on stage.
You might have already seen that. Anyway.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to see him piss himself again on stage.
There it is. There it is. Man, I just... They still had Turtle. This would just be FlyQuest Teal. I like this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy that Turtle.
You're not a fan of Turtle. You're not a.
Well, I mean, no, I'm a fan of Turtle, but it's like
Turtle's play. Yeah.
I mean, no, it's just like I don't like seeing old players like ruin their careers by just like being horrible at the end of their career, like being actually like the worst in the region. Like I like seeing them kind of go out. I want to remember Turtle at the end of like 2020, you know, where I'm like, damn, look at that longevity, like. You know, made 2 finals, went to Worlds, beat Jackie Love. All right, won a game versus Jackie. All right, that's all I need to know. I don't want to think about CLG, that whole struggle, and then this immortal. Like, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it.
All right.
He's a great player. He's one of the best AD carries. He's probably like a top 5 AD carry in LCS ever, like historically. So
yeah.
let's remember him like that, please.
We will. Let's go to our gods of the week. Dom, go ahead. Who you got?
My god of the week. I'll do the easy one. I'll give it to Dokla. I mean, he's so much better than Jenkins was, and he was actually playing aggressive. And that to me is I think a pretty big difference. Like that is a player that you can tell is playing with confidence and playing their own game, and that's actually a very good comparison to what I didn't see from Kenvi. Like Dokla came in, he like wants to actually show what he's made of. Like, and people say, oh well, he's played in LCS before. But like to me, I think that almost makes it worse when you've played in LCS like 3-4 years ago, and then you've got like this is your shot, you know, and you know that like you're on the fucking you're in the hot seat. If you fucking underperform, Jenkins probably coming back. I thought Dokla actually, you know, showed that he's elevated his gameplay and he's ready for LCS. So I'll give him my god.
All right. Monty.
Chovy. It's a great meta for Chovy. He gets to play one of his all-time great champions, Azir, which he's played 3 times so far. He has also played 1 game of Corki. So it's not the most exciting, but he continues to be as dominant in lane as ever. He has died 0 times in the first 4 games that he has played within this split of the LCK. And yeah, he hasn't had the toughest opponents, but he is dominating his lane. Out of the entire league, he has the highest gold difference and XP or gold difference at 10 minutes. He has just been absolutely spectacular. He's doing 35% of his team damage, which you would expect on some of these like hyper carry poke champions, but he's been really good. And I think the knock against Chovy has long been that once he exits the laning phase, he is not super well coordinated with the rest of his team, but he's looked good so far this split. And he's still a very young player, so I am holding out hope that eventually he can learn how to work with his teammates properly. But it's been a really, really strong showing at the start of this season from him.
All right. Along the back of that thought process, give me Bjergsen. Hasn't died yet. Showed you were like, okay, it's just gonna be wait and scale with Victor, but then showed off, okay, we'll pull out the LeBlanc.
Yeah, the LeBlanc game was really what is the inkling that Bjergsen might be back, because mid was so terrible last split in LCS, and Bjergsen was first team All-Pro, but he really wasn't even good, and he certainly wasn't carrying games like he used to. But that LeBlanc game was actually like legit Bjergsen again, so that made me happy to see.
Yep. So TL getting their representation through Bjergsen here. Okay, there we go. Got her dog complete. This episode basically done here. Summer split is underway. Well and good. We've got ourselves the matches to watch for next week. Closing thoughts here, Monty.
Yeah. Watch the new LCK show if you're an LCK fan, where we can complain about how LCK is doing nothing and boring, but it will be more exciting than watching the games themselves. So we'll save you the trouble of watching the boring games.
What a sell.
Know about what's going on in the LCK without suffering 20 minutes of no kills. There you go. There's the pitch right there. Sound informed. Don't watch the games. Monty and Wolf show. Go watch it.
Cool. And I'm going to say the opposite for LPL. I'm not going to do an LPL show. I just want you to watch the games, because if you watch the games, then you'll like what you see. I
agree with Dom.
LCK.
We can't do LPL shows because nobody watches LPL. But if you watch the games in LPL, then we can have LPL shows. So there you go.
Yeah,
it's the first step to an LPL show.
Yeah. Well, it's just the hype. Like, no one really likes watching good league. You know, they'd rather just sit there for 34 minutes, watching people farm and watch one first blood at 34:30 and then a Nexus exploded. For some reason, that is what people think is exciting. So, you know what? Maybe you shouldn't watch LPL. Maybe you should just watch that. So when we come to Worlds, you guys will have a bunch of terrible opinions, like T1 is going to smash everyone, and there's not going to be anyone close. And you guys can call me delusional, and I can make a career off being a hater, aka just watching LPL.
Right, which is actually a good point. I did pull up one comment here from last week's episode of The Jungle. Let me see if I have it. It was about specifically the T1, I guess like T1 copium, about how they ended up in that spot in terms of underperforming. This is from Michael Samansky. He said, I wonder if the decline of Damwon caused a ripple effect where T1 didn't have any excellent teams in the region to punish them hard enough and force improvements to stay competitive. There seems to be a trend in Korea where they can still produce good teams, but only one or two world-class teams that can compete with the LPL. That seems interesting in terms of lines of logic, but what did you think of that here, Monty?
Sorry, you cut out there for a second. I didn't hear the end of the comment.
There seems to be a trend where a team from Korea can produce good teams, but only one or two world-class teams that can compete with the LPL.
I mean, that's true. It's definitely true this last split. Like, I think that it was really one-sided. Now, part of that was because of COVID and all of this other shit, right? But there were clear flaws, I think, with T1 that we discussed at length. And then there were also even more clear flaws with some of the other Korean teams. I think it is more competitive this time around, but it's not shocking to say that there are more competitive teams within the LPL than the LCK, and that typically it's just been one LCK team that has been able to kind of compete at the top level. Now, you might look at it and say, well, okay, at Worlds last year, there were actually a lot of Korean teams that made overall deep runs into the playoffs, right? Like you saw, these matches like Gen.G, losing a close best of 5 to EDG. 3 of the 4 teams in the semifinals were there, but also that was kind of like bad bracket draws because RNG and EDG hit each other in the first round of the playoffs. I mean, all 4 teams made the playoffs, so that was pretty good, but Hanwha was kind of unexpected and got bodied. So I think
realistically, the only reason they made the playoffs is because Fnatic exploded. Like, they definitely wouldn't have had a very easy way to get into the playoffs. That's
extremely
Fnatic.
True. That's extremely true. But also, I think LNG did kind of maybe, or FPX did, FPX did worse than expected, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know. Like, I feel like Korea benefited from other teams exploding, whether like not feeling full rosters like Fnatic.
It's an inside job. Nuggery just destroyed FPX.
Dude, I did make that joke. I did make that joke at the time that he was the sleeper agent put there by Dom1 in that group to destroy FPX from the inside out. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like,
I have a whole video on it. If LCK wants to be competitive, they need to actually do double elimination. How does LCK still not have double elimination? It's the only major region that doesn't do double elimination in their playoffs. How? Like, they need to actually have their teams fight.
I think, well, I'm not sure that would have been good. It would have been really horrible this spring, honestly. Like, the level of competition, I just don't think is there to actually make those double elimination playoffs interesting.
I mean, worst comes to worst, you see Dom1 versus Gen.G again. I definitely want to see Dom1 versus Gen.G again after what happened the first time. It was literally decided by Dom1 throwing. Then maybe Dom1 wins the second time, then they play against T1, then you get a better series. Like,
yeah, I think you're looking at the very end of that. The early stages of that double elimination bracket would be incredibly painful. Really not good games. And the logic also was that if you're playing double round robin best of 3, that there should be very concrete advantages because you play so many games to earn those seeds. I think double elimination probably better, but it's not. I don't think it's as good as you think it would be. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think it would be really good. I mean, it's double elimination past the point, so you don't do double elimination with the dog shit teams. You do double elimination with the semifinals on. So that's what LPL does. You hit 4, and then the worst match you get is you get DRX versus like Dom 1. That's the worst match you get, which I think is like even more watchable than DRX for like. I feel like that's the price you pay in order to get DRX versus Gen.G again, or get like 2 final or like 2 matches between Gen.G and T1, which I think would just be better, you know?
Yeah. I picked
Still
that
think it'd
coming
be
out.
way worse than double elim in LPL playoffs. Like those matches are much more exciting. But anyway, yes. I don't think that's the reason why they're being held back. I think the teams are just not as good as LPL teams in terms of player depth and player pool and competitiveness. And especially, I think that the way that Korean teams are coached to be ultra passive and never take risks is actually one of the biggest core issues with the Korean teams.
Yeah.
I
You never
picked
know.
that one out
When you have a
because
second life, maybe sometimes you can be a little bit more aggressive. And then I
Yeah,
think the
maybe.
other part, I think the other part of it is like, it doesn't look like the top LCK teams are much worse than the LPL teams when it comes to international competition, right? Like we see game 5s between all of them. I think the main problem is that they're not clutch. And
No, they play
I
like
feel,
cowards in game 5s. Like I couldn't believe what we saw in both game 5 of Dom 1 at Worlds and then game 5 of T1 at MSI. It was just both, like the coward's way out both times. It was lame.
yeah. So, hey, we'll see.
Again, fans, put in your comments. We will pick them out, and I don't always pick the ones that piss everyone off. This one was actually a good comment. I like that one. Again, catch Monty on his the LCK show. Catch Dom co-streaming every single game everywhere. But of course, don't watch LPL with him. You could watch it and then come back and we'll discuss
My
it
streams have been
afterwards.
really enjoyable. I've noticed that my streams are more enjoyable when I have like 2 to 3K viewers than when I have like 5K watching LPL. Normally when I have 5K watching LPL, it's just people telling me how much better T1 is than the LPL team that I'm currently watching. That's actually just all it is.
I don't understand when T1 fans got so fucking annoying because they weren't that annoying when I was in Korea, but they're really fucking annoying now.
Well, I think that it's like the pent up anger for like not winning a major international tournament for like 5 years at this point. It's starting to actually boil over. You know, they were spoiled before. You know, it's what I've noticed even by like championship teams in Korea is that even the players, the coaches, everyone, they're so like humble when they're winning, but then when they lose, then you start seeing the saltiness. Then you start seeing, oh, it was blue side diff, or like, oh, no one impressed me. That's when you start seeing the actual like, you know, the slights at people.
Interesting. Let's see. Yeah, Wild Rift group stage starts now. A North American team beat Kwangdong Freaks. That was fun. But I'll be here. We will be covering week 2 and I guess week 3 if you're counting the LPL of all the action here on The Jungle next week. Make sure you all subscribe so you don't miss it, and we'll see y'all next time. Thanks.